Nintendo's had some bad consoles over the years sales-wise, and probably the most infamous of these is the Wii U. But was it really that bad? I mean, there were some incredible games that released on this system, some of my favorites from growing up. But there were some glaring issues with this console, and in this video, I wanted to take a look back at the console itself and the games that defined it, to really see why, even with all its flaws, I still think the Wii U is genius. So without further ado, my name is Mariomikester, and welcome to a giant Wii U retrospective. Initially released on November 18th, 2012 as a launch title for the Wii U, and then re-released as a port on January 11th, 2019 for the Nintendo Switch, New Super Mario Bros. U is the fourth entry in the New Super Mario Bros. Series. Development for this game started right after the release of New Super Mario Bros. Wii and spanned about 3 years. The first we ever heard of this game's existence was at E3 2011, where it was available as one of the many playable Wii U tech demos meant to show off the gamepad's functionality. At this E3 event though, the game was weirdly titled New Super Mario Bros. Me, instead of the name we all know it as today, most likely because of the many Miis present in the demo. However, a year later at E3 2012, the game was fully revealed, now with its final name, New Super Mario Bros. U. The opening for this game starts off just like any other. Mario, Luigi, and some friends are enjoying a meal, but as you probably expected, are rudely interrupted by Bowser and his giant hand thing. Now where most Mario games would see Bowser using this hand to grab Peach and escape back to his fiery kingdom, New Super Mario Bros. U shakes things up a little, something this series desperately needed. And instead of kidnapping Peach, Bowser instead grabs Mario and friends, hurling them miles away from the Mushroom Kingdom, hoping to never see them again. This change of pace is amazing. It always annoyed me how every new Super Mario Bros. Game up to this point always had you start in the Mushroom Kingdom. It was one of the things that made these games blend in at times. But this change isn't without flaw. Despite Bowser throwing them far away from the grassy plains of the Mushroom Kingdom, opening up the possibility to start in a completely new environment, the game has you instead land in another grassy plain, an area referred to as Eggcorn Plains. I would have absolutely loved if this game started in, say, a mountain world or ice world or just anything that isn't Eggcorn Plains, as it would have been something fresh and unique, but I guess not starting in the Mushroom Kingdom is a plus. While on the topic of worlds though, New Super Mario Bros. U returns to an idea we haven't seen since Super Mario World and connects all 8 worlds together, creating a giant world map allowing the player to travel to each world seamlessly. This has always been one of my favorite things about the game. It's so nice to zoom out and see where you are in proportion to everything else, but also where you're going next if you're playing the game for the first time. And while this idea isn't executed perfectly, with the change from Desert World to Snow World being very jarring, a lot of them are done very well and overall make the world feel lively and connected. I mean, just look at a fully zoomed out version of the map. You can spot so many little details and secrets spread all throughout. It's incredible. One of the absolute best new additions with this connected map though, has to be the secret exits. In previous New Super Mario Bros. Games, a lot of secret exits would lead to cannons. These cannons would allow you to skip entire worlds with relative ease. However, in this game, cannons are completely removed, with secret exits now unlocking paths that lead to the new world, and along the way forcing you to tackle a level relative to the area you're in to show your skills and prove you're ready for the next world. For example, the secret exit in 1-2 brings you to World 5. However, to make your way there, you pass around World 4, the beach world, and to prove you can survive in World 5, you have to take on a World 4 themed level, which is just so cool. But enough about the world map. Let's get into the bulk of what matters in a 2D Mario game, the levels. Starting off with the first level, it's okay, but out of every single New Super Mario Bros. Opening level, this has gotta be the most forgettable to me. It introduced the new power-up of the game, the Super Acorn, pretty well, but it doesn't have that distinct thing that all the others have. DS had the Mega Mushroom section that let you destroy huge parts of the level. Wii had those spinning hills with secret pipes inside, and New Super Mario Bros. 2 had the music blocks and those colorful Mario 3 inspired blocks. All New Super Mario Bros. U has is, squirrels? The first level of a 2D Mario game should have something memorable in it. Something that should at least make you go, oh, this is cool. But instead all we got here is some flying squirrels and Goombas. This is really unfortunate because the game genuinely has a ton of good levels throughout its runtime, some of the absolute best being Layer Cake Desert Dash 5, Dry Desert Mushrooms. This level is entirely based around the spike enemies. They're placed high above you, and you have to make your way through the level constantly avoiding them, and trying to determine when they'll drop their spiky rocks so that you can make it through unharmed. Later in the level, the spikes are atop these extending and retracting mushrooms that allow them to drop rocks even more randomly. The end of the level has a ton of them above you at once, forcing you to be very precise about your movement. Frosted Glacier's first level, Star Spinning Sky, has you platforming across a bunch of spinning stars, as you would probably expect from the name, that light up the stage with their beautiful glow. The setting of this stage, and also the entire world, is an amazing take on the Snow World theme. These levels take place at night in a snowy mountain setting with the backgrounds filled with bright stars and tall trees. The end of the level makes great use of munchers, encouraging you to platform safely across the stars without falling. However, if you look around and find a secret area, you can get a star that lets you effortlessly cross the munchers without a problem as a reward for exploring the level well. Sparkling Waters has this haunted ghost ship level that I absolutely adore. Not only is the idea extremely unique, it's executed insanely well. You have the underwater section that sees you avoiding groups of boos, a pole jumping section where you have to land on a variety of floating boxes, and a maze at the end of the level that's filled with secrets. Levels like these give me hope for 2D Mario. There's a lot of potential for greatness in the series. The end of the level also has this amazing backdrop, showing a full 3D model of the haunted shipwreck with this gloomy lighting. I love it. This level also has a secret exit, and this secret exit leads you to one of the coolest levels in the game, Skyward Stalk. This level is not only amazing because of its unique idea, but also how it correlates to the secret exit. The world map shows a huge beanstalk that leads high up into marine clouds, which is exactly what you do in the level. Climb up a giant beanstalk into the clouds. I wish more levels in this game did something similar to this. It makes great use of the world map. And the level itself is great. Usually auto-scrollers are very lame and slow, but this one is actually fun. And I mean, who couldn't love these little balloon Goombas? But by far out of every level in this game, the absolute best has to be Soda Jungle's Painted Swampland. The level has an entirely new art style that's inspired by the famous Starry Night painting by Vincent van Gogh. I absolutely love this. There's so much character present in just the graphics of this level alone. The entire time I play this, I'm always looking at the background and just appreciating how well it's done. Could you imagine an entire world based on this style? It would be nothing short of incredible. But that's not the only great thing about this level. In order to progress through the game, you have to find this stage's secret exit, as the regular exit literally just leads nowhere. Back in my Mario Galaxy video, I talked about how a good game is able to teach the player core mechanics without interrupting the flow of gameplay with text boxes and long-winded tutorials. And this is another great example of that. While the game could stop you and let you know, oh hey, some levels have secret exits, Mario U says nah, we're gonna make you look for them. You are required to explore this level. This level is just so good in so many different ways. So yeah, overall, a lot of the levels in the game are great. But you know what's even better? Yoshi. Baby Yoshi. Making the return from Super Mario World, albeit functioning entirely differently, New Super Mario Bros. U reintroduces the Baby Yoshis to 2D Mario. Originally in Super Mario World, the Baby Yoshis were nothing more than the name implies. Baby Yoshis. Your goal with them was to feed them enough so that they would grow into an adult Yoshi. However, in Mario U, the Baby Yoshis have an entirely new purpose. Now unable to grow up, the Baby Yoshis have 3 different variants, all with their own ability. The Balloon Baby Yoshi, first found in Acorn Plains, offers, well, a balloon power, expanding into a giant big Yoshi when you shake the controller, allowing for a lot of vertical movement options. The Bubble Baby Yoshi, first found in Frosted Glacier, creates a bunch of bubbles when you shake the controller. These bubbles will instantly defeat any enemy they touch, offering coins and occasionally 1-ups to the player. You can also gain a little bit of height if you jump off these bubbles, but not much. The last and final Baby Yoshi, the Glowing Baby Yoshi, glows. That's all it does. Unlike Yoshi, you can actually take these Baby Yoshis into different levels and use their abilities throughout the entire game. Well, except the glowing one. You can't take that one out of levels, sadly. Although it's really unfortunate regular Yoshi still can't be taken out of levels, I love being able to take these little guys across the entire game. It adds a lot of strategy to how the player will approach certain levels. The only levels you can't take these guys into are castle levels, which makes sense. It might be a little overpowered to be able to turn Boom Boom and the Koopalings into a bubble at the shake of a controller. Oh yeah, Boom Boom and the Koopalings are back! Boom Boom, now making his first appearance in 2D Mario since Super Mario Bros. 3, acts as the mid-castle boss for most of the worlds throughout the game. Your first battle with him is simple enough. However, over the course of each and every world, he becomes stronger and stronger, with Kamek giving him more ways of attacking you. I would love to say this makes his fights more interesting, but they really don't. Once you hit Boom Boom down once, you've practically won the fight, as you can just jump on him right when he gets back up another 2 times to finish him off. I think his fights would have been leagues more interesting if he had invincibility frames when getting up, as he might actually pose a threat that way. All in all though, I was glad to see him return. He's much better than fighting the Koopalings twice per world like in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and a lot better than the Rhinos from New Super Mario Bros. 2. The Koopalings, now making their 3rd appearance in the New Super Mario Bros. Series, are actually done extremely well this time. Their castle levels are a lot better, with Ludwig's being my personal favorite, and the fights themselves are the best Koopalings fights in 2D Mario. Instead of just fighting them in a room at the end of the castle, each Koopaling has their own ship now that you shoot into at the end of every castle level to fight them. These ships also change depending on the character, which is something I love. It makes the Koopalings feel more distinct and shows actual character, even if it is incredibly minor. Lemmy's fight is the first and easily the most simple. His ship doesn't have anything fancy and he just kinda throws bombs at you. However, other Koopalings fights get a bit more interesting. In World 2, Morton summons a giant Pokey and hits parts of it at the player. In World 3, Wendy has an ice rink in her ship with icicles that fall from the top as the fight goes on. In World 6 and 7, Roy and Ludwig have fights that take place on top of their ship, with Roy summoning platforms and shooting bullet bills, and Ludwig creating clones of himself to try and trick the player. I absolutely love how unique these fights are. They incorporate parts of the Koopalings' characters into the fight, and also make the setting completely new and creative for the series. These fights do not get nearly enough credit. I loved them. And while on the topic of things in this game that didn't get nearly enough credit, we have the Challenge Mode. Challenge Mode is a side mode separate from the main game that sees you, well, doing a variety of challenges. In the Wii U version, there are 5 categories of challenges: Time Attack, Coin Collection, 1-Up Rally, Special, and Boost Mode. The Nintendo Switch port of the game straight up removed the Boost Mode challenges as they were meant to be played with the Wii U gamepad. But you aren't really missing much if you don't own the Wii U version. I never hear people talking about the challenges in this game anymore, which is a real shame, because they are absolutely one of the best things this game has to offer. Most of the challenges take tons of pre-existing stages in the game and add incredibly fun new clear conditions to them. For example, one of the special category challenges takes place in the first level of Soda Jungle, and to complete the challenge you have to make use of the Super Eggcorn and clear the entire level without touching the ground. Something I literally never thought would be possible when I played the stage in the base game. Another special challenge, Big Air at Sundown, sees you making use of the Mini Mushroom, using it to clear the entirety of a snake block stage without touching the snake blocks. I absolutely love this challenge. You have to use the paratroopas and other enemies spread all throughout the level as landing pads. This challenge is not only extremely fun, but it demonstrates to the player one of the many ways the Mini Mushroom works incredibly seamlessly. As you progress through these challenges and complete and unlock more of them, they get harder and harder, forcing you to get an even better understanding of Mario's movement and how to best use it to your advantage. One of the harder challenges I was never able to beat as a kid was Larry's Groundless Battle. The challenge sees the player having to beat Larry Koopa's Koopaling fight without touching the ground at all, only being able to land on the water geysers that shoot up every so often. This challenge is incredibly difficult and is only a taste of how hard these challenges can get. Please try out this game's challenge mode if you never have, it's very much worth it. The other 2 side modes this game has to offer are Boost Rush and Coin Battle. I never really enjoyed either of these modes, but I'm still glad they're in the game. Boost Rush sees you journeying through different level packs, similar to Coin Rush and New Super Mario Bros. 2, with the screen scrolling faster the more coins you collect. Coin Battle is a co-op only mode where you, battle for coins. I never really played this mode much as a kid because whenever I played the game with friends, we strictly stuck to the main game and pissed each other off by throwing each other off the stage. Overall though, I think the inclusion of 3 side modes is amazing. It adds a lot of stuff for the player to do outside of the base game, with the challenge mode being the absolute best mode the New Super Mario Bros. Series has ever done. But returning back to the main game, we have without a doubt the best final world in 2D Mario history, Peach's Castle. Throughout the game, you see the castle slowly fade into the control of Bowser. First the flags are changed, then a storm is created around it, and then finally the storm fully consumes the castle, shrouding it from outside light. By the time you reach the castle, the place is absolutely ruined by Bowser. The water moat surrounding it has been replaced with lava, and all the toads have vanished from the place. It's so cool to see the castle like this, especially in a 2D Mario game. One of the coolest things they did here has to be the world map theme though. It's a sped up, more menacing, Bowser-like version of the Peach's Castle theme from Super Mario 64. Take a listen. The levels here are great, especially the elevator stage, which sees you ascending the castle, avoiding enemies on this platform that you control by tilting the controller. But I can't help but wish we saw a remake or reimagining of previous levels that took place near Peach's Castle and other 2D Mario games. Maybe we could have seen something like New Super Mario Bros. Wii's first level, but it's filled with lava and volcanic eruptions or something. It would have been so cool. Moving on to the final level itself, it's great, but pretty short. Bowser Jr. is here, and he uses his clown car to try to crush you and throw you into the lava. And just as soon as it's getting good and you start to understand how Bowser Jr. works and you're ready for more, it's over. I would have loved for there to be so much more to this level. There was tons of potential for a really challenging stage here, but maybe they wanted the focus here to be on the Bowser fight itself, which is absolutely incredible. Similar to almost every 2D Mario game before it, the fight starts off with the classic face-off between Mario and Bowser, which is over in about 4 seconds. Seriously, you'd think Bowser would learn to stop jumping in the air like that during these fights. I mean, I can understand the first couple times, but like still? You're still doing that, Bowser? It's kind of embarrassing if you ask me. But onto the true final Bowser fight, it's a ton of fun. Bowser grows to an enormous size, and you fight him accompanied by Bowser Jr. on top of the castle. To deal damage to him, you have to literally steal Bowser Jr.'s clown car, and deck Bowser in the head with it 3 times. It's a very cool way to deal damage, but man, I always loved how menacing Bowser is throughout this fight. He walks so arrogantly, and once you hit him, goes into his shell and starts bouncing around like crazy, taking up like 1/4 of the screen at times. Once he's out of his shell, he lets out a massive roar, shooting tons of fireballs into the air. It's so cool. This doesn't top New Super Mario Bros. Wii's fight for me, but it's definitely high up there for best 2D Mario Bowser fight. I love how Bowser Jr. is here too. He hasn't been in a final Bowser fight since New Super Mario Bros. On the DS, and he works really well here. It's sometimes actually tough to avoid both of them at the same time. But the fight isn't too hard. After a few bonks to the head, Bowser goes down, letting out a final roar before he falls into the depths of the castle. Following not soon after his father, Bowser Jr. also descends into the depths of the castle. Although not due to Mario defeating him, he just kinda accepted his fate, bringing an end to the amazing fight. Initially released as DLC for New Super Mario Bros. U on June 20th, 2013, and then later re-released as a port in New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe on January 11th, 2019, New Super Luigi U is technically the 5th entry in the New Super Mario Bros. Series. I say technically because the game was initially released as DLC, but did eventually get a standalone physical release on the Wii U. This game was created as part of Nintendo's Year of Luigi celebration, the year that not only marked the 30th anniversary of Luigi's original debut in the Mario Bros. Arcade game, but also Nintendo's worst fiscal year in the history of the company, with a reported loss of $456 million. Despite Nintendo's loss of almost $500 million though, they were able to create one of the most unique 2D Mario games ever. A 2D Mario game without Mario. Mario's absence is immediately presented to the player in this game's opening cutscene, where we see the exact same opening as Mario U, except Mario isn't there, with only his hat representing where he once sat. In light of Mario's absence though, we see the introduction of a brand new playable character, Nabbit. Nabbit was first introduced in Mario U as a thief who constantly stole from Toad houses. You had to chase him through a variety of different levels and were rewarded with items if you caught him. Nabbit had such a cool design for just being a background character, so it's cool he got a full spotlight in this game. He's presented as kind of an easy mode character though, being able to run right through enemies without getting hit. Now while I think having an easy mode character is great for encouraging younger players to pick up the game and have a chance at competing with those more skilled, it's unfortunate that someone is literally required to pick him if you're playing with 4 people, as most people would prefer to experience the game normally. But with Luigi U's completely overhauled and more challenging level design, Nabbit doesn't have too big of an advantage over others. Yes, despite Luigi U having the exact same world map and opening as Mario U, every single level here is completely new. Instead of Eggcorn Plains Way as the first level, we now have Waddle Wing Warning. Instead of Tilted Tunnel, we have Crooked Cavern. Instead of Crushing Cog's Tower, we have Flame Gear Tower. Along with this, levels are now much more difficult, and most importantly, much shorter. At the beginning of every level, your timer is at 100 seconds left instead of the usual 300 to 400. Now at first, this sounds awful. I mean, some stages in Mario U were already short as is. Now they're gonna make them even shorter? But in reality, this is one of the best decisions they could have made. This game features some of the absolute best stages in 2D Mario history. And before I go into detail of some of the best in the game, I first want to talk about the controls. In every single new Super Mario Bros. Game he's appeared in, which is all of them, Luigi is controlled the exact same as Mario. But it wasn't always like this. In Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, the Japan-exclusive sequel to Super Mario Bros. On the NES, Luigi is a fully playable character featuring a completely different playstyle than that of Mario's. In the game, Luigi has a much more higher jump than Mario, allowing for him to more easily complete difficult platforming challenges. But in order to not make Mario unviable, he is also incredibly slippery, controlling on the ground like he's on ice all the time, making it difficult to bring the character to a stop. After this game though, this control scheme was practically forgotten about, only returning a few times over the years. But in New Super Luigi U, it was back. And not just for Luigi. Every single playable character in the game gets the new control scheme, making the game not only a little more difficult, but also extremely refreshing and unique. The high jump allows for you to reach new heights never thought possible in New Super Mario Bros., and the reduced traction forces you to think completely differently about how you're going to tackle different situations. Both the level design and new control scheme go hand in hand to create some of the most fun I've ever had with 2D Mario. I mean, just look at this. Totally meant to do that. The levels in this game are incredible, and just to show you how much the level design has improved, I want to look back at some of my favorites from Mario U and what they've done with them in Luigi U. Starting off with Frosted Glacier Dash 1. In Mario U, this stage was called Star Spinning Sky and revolved around platforming across a bunch of different stars. I enjoyed the level because the stars were a set piece we had never seen before, and the aesthetic of the level was amazing. In Luigi U, the level is now called Bruisers and Barrels and is so much better. This level makes use of the bruiser enemies that throughout the stage are punching barrels at you while you try to ascend to the top. What makes this level so great is its creativity. The bruiser enemies are almost always seen in ghost houses, so seeing them here is awesome. The level being vertical also adds to its creativity. Most vertical levels in this game are auto-scrollers, but this one is not. The goal is just basically get to the top as fast as you can, with each new floor featuring a new angry bruiser to avoid. The most important thing to note about this level though, and really most levels in this game, is that a stage like this only works in Luigi U. If this were a full-length Mario U stage, it would get boring really quick. But the great thing about Luigi U is that these concepts never get overused. The level is over before it gets repetitive, which in turn makes it more memorable. In Mario U, I really enjoyed Sparkling Water's stage, Haunted Shipwreck. The level took place in an abandoned ship now haunted by ghosts and featured 3 main sections, of which I enjoyed all of them. In Luigi U, this level is now called Haunted Cargo Hold, and somehow is able to basically combine the 3 major sections into one compact section. The 3 main sections in Mario U stage were a pole jumping section where you platformed across floating boxes, an underwater section where you avoided groups of boos, and a maze at the end filled with secrets. In Luigi U, you have the pole jumping across boxes, now with the groups of boos being there, an alternate path below, which is an underwater section, now filled with spiny cheeps that chase you around, and a hidden secret pipe at the end that leads to a secret exit that partially represents the maze section at the end. Now, most levels in this game do have completely new concepts separate from their Mario U counterparts, but I just wanted to mention this stage to show that even if this game reuses concepts from Mario U, it does so in a genius way, almost remixing them in a sense to make them feel more fresh. The last level I want to talk about in this comparison section is easily the best overhauled stage in the entire game, Beanstalk Jungle. In Mario U, this stage was called Skyward Stalk and was one of my favorites in the entire game. Not just because of its level design, but how it correlated to where it was leading the player as a secret exit. On the map, the secret exit takes you up a beanstalk high up in the clouds, which was very well reflected in the level. However, in Luigi U, they do it even better. Notice the world this path goes over. It's Soda Jungle. Luigi U realizes this, and instead of making it a sky-themed level, it's a jungle-themed level, filled with piranhas and waddle wings, that instead of being a vertical auto-scroller, is more of a horizontal auto-scroller, representing the fact that you're going over Soda Jungle, and ending with you reaching the clouds. I love it. But not only was this game's level design amazing, their secrets were just as great, with every single level in the game featuring a hidden Luigi somewhere throughout it. There's no reward or anything for finding all of them, rather they're just little secrets that make these levels that much cooler. A lot of the time, the hidden Luigis are just 8-bit sprites made out of colorful blocks that you just see and move on. But some of these get a bit more interesting and show just how much love and care went into this game. For example, in the airship level All Aboard, if you notice at the very beginning of the level, instead of a Bowser head on the ship, it's a Luigi head. Or in Painted Pipeworks, where the secret exit of this level features this canvas with a beautiful painting of Luigi, stylized just like the level on it. Or my absolute personal favorite, the hanging sign at the end of Vanishing Ghost House, which features a depiction of Luigi fighting King Boo, which is a really cool reference to Luigi's Mansion. Little secrets like this don't change how you play levels, but make them much more memorable. I mean, I'm always going to remember Vanishing Ghost House because of how cool that Easter egg is. These hidden Luigis weren't the only secrets the game held though. Similar to every new Super Mario Bros. Game before it, Luigi U has 3 star coins spread around in every single level. Now, star coins still function the exact same way as always. You collect them in order to unlock levels in Star Road. However, the way you approach collecting them is completely different. A lot of the time, the star coins aren't very well hidden. They're usually out in the open, ready for you to grab. Now, in every other new Super Mario Bros. Game, I would call this lazy. But in Luigi U, it actually works in the game's favor. You see, Luigi U has an incredibly strict time limit on levels. You always want to be moving. So stopping and trying to find a way to reach a certain star coin can seriously harm your run, and can be the difference between completing the level or dying to the clock. The timer is a bigger enemy than anything in this game. Along with that, since every level starts under 100 seconds, you are literally only hearing the sped up version of the music tracks that are supposed to play in these levels, which only furthers the amount of pressure on you at all times. New Super Luigi U can be extremely stressful at times. And on the topic of stress, going back to this game, I was extremely surprised at how difficult a lot of the levels were. And not just because of the clock. Luigi U does not mess around when it comes to difficult level design, which is something I love about the game. A lot of the other new Super Mario Bros. Games rarely offer a challenge, and when they do, it's in the post-game or in a side mode. However, New Super Luigi U is different. Its difficulty is one of its main gimmicks, and it's handled extremely well. Hell, I even died on the first level. And while a lot of the levels in this game are hard and took me multiple attempts to beat, they're never unfair, which is extremely important. There's a big difference between difficult and unfair. A great example of unfair level design in Mario are Kaizo blocks. There is absolutely nothing a player can do about this obstacle unless they're aware of it beforehand, in which case they can constantly check for them, which is pretty boring. One of the best examples of difficult level design that is fair is Super Mario 3D World's Champions Road. This level is regarded as one of the hardest Mario levels ever, but handles its difficulty extremely well. It took me like 2 hours to beat this level for the first time, but those 2 hours were some of the most fun I've had with the game. I was constantly learning about the level, I got it down to a rhythm almost, and finally beating it felt amazing. This is not to say Luigi U's levels are nearly as difficult as Champions Road, but instead that they handle difficulty in a very similar way. When you get stuck on a Luigi U level, sure you might be a little upset, but that's not because there's 22 Bowsers falling out of the sky and a Kaizo block over every gap. It's because you're taking longer on a level than you initially expected, and you want to move on. Learning the ins and outs of a difficult level in this game, and finally beating it, feels amazing. If that new 2D Mario rumor I've been hearing more and more about really comes true, I would love to see this game share difficulty similar to Luigi U. But I wonder how other people would feel about that. So please, if you care at all, leave a comment about your thoughts on difficulty in 2D Mario. I'm very curious. Moving on though, I wanted to touch on the overhauled Koopalings levels, because personally, I think these castle levels are so much better than before. In Mario U, I love the Koopalings fights because they were so different and unique from what we'd seen before. The castle levels themselves though, were alright at best. A lot of the time it was just simple platforming above lava, with only 2 castles having a unique setting. But in Luigi U, each of these castles feel completely distinct and unique. I mean, you got stages like Lemmy's Lights Out Castle. This one isn't all too intense or anything, as it's the first one, but it features a completely unique concept we've never seen in a castle before. That is having to platform in almost complete darkness across moving pendulums, with enemies and secrets hiding in the shadows. Another great one is Morton's Lava Block Castle. This stage has you platforming across constantly moving blocks that often go right into the lava. This level works well in the game because you need to take your time with it. The exact thing the player doesn't want to do. This level is perfect at testing your patience. And on the complete opposite side of the spectrum from Morton's castle, we have Larry's trigger-happy castle. And instead of testing your patience, this level tests your speed, with a Bonsai Bill chasing you as soon as you start the level, and a King Bill chasing you as you're about to end the level. Last up, we have Ludwig's Block Press Castle. This level is great because it makes use of both patience and speed. You have to be patient and wait for the blocks to move, but also fast, as if you wait too long or go too slow, you'll run out the timer or get crushed by the blocks. The only partial downside to the Koopalings in this game is that their fights are identical to Mario U. And I mean, as much as I would have loved for them to be overhauled as well, the fights were already good enough as they were in Mario U. But after beating all the Koopalings and sinking down Bowser's ship, you make your way into the final world of the game, Peach's Castle, and see one of the biggest changes in the entirety of not only New Super Luigi U, but the New Super Mario Bros. Series as a whole. Listen to this. Luigi! That's right, she said Luigi. Jokes aside though, I kinda wish they changed Peach's Castle. I mean, it feels like such a Mario thing to save Peach. Like, imagine if we got Peach as a playable character and the goal was to save Daisy or Mario. It would have been a lot cooler. But it doesn't bother me too much. Onto the world itself though, I think the levels are great. Again, just like I said in my Mario U video, I would have loved to see old levels from previous 2D Mario games that took place in Peach's Castle now filled with lava. But that might not really work in Luigi U anyway. I absolutely love the way they changed the elevator level though. Instead of being a vertical side-scroller, now it's a horizontal one, and it feels fresh this way. Moving on to the final level, I think it's okay. The showdown with Bowser Jr. is better than Mario U, but I still think they could have expanded on it a bit more. The only interesting thing I noticed here is that Bowser Jr. tries to sabotage you at the end, which actually got me. The main reason I only call this final level okay though, is because of the Bowser fight. I completely understood the Koopalings and Boom Boom having the same fights, but Bowser for sure should have been different. I don't really know what new they could have done, but finishing this game exactly the same way as you do in Mario U is very disappointing and not memorable at all. Sure, the fight is still fun, but even something as small as just changing Bowser to Dry Bowser would have made a huge difference. I don't think the ending of this game is bad, it's just disappointing. Released here in North America on November 22nd, 2013, and later re-released as an enhanced port for the Nintendo Switch on February 12th, 2021, Super Mario 3D World is the 6th mainline 3D Mario game, and serves as a successor to Super Mario 3D Land, improving upon its formula and introducing a ton of new things that set it apart. Development for this game unsurprisingly started shortly after 3D Land's release in 2011, with the main goal the team had being to implement 4-player couch co-op multiplayer to 3D Land's new Super Mario Bros.-esque level design. But since a lot of the groundwork for this game was already laid by 3D Land, the team was able to experiment a ton with cool new gimmicks and level ideas, but also new characters. Since this game would be 4-player, they couldn't just have Mario and Luigi playable, they needed at least 2 more. And at first, the simple yellow and blue toads used in the new Super Mario Bros. Games were the easiest picks. However, producer of the game Yoshiaki Koizumi pitched that Peach be playable, as he felt the Mario series needed more female representation. This idea not only made it so the plot of the game wouldn't be the usual saving Peach deal and could actually be something unique, but also sparked another idea from the team that the character roster could be the same as Super Mario Bros. 2, serving as a homage to that game, with the character's unique abilities coming back as well. With Mario being an all-around character, Luigi jumping higher, Peach floating, and Toad running fast. Yoshi was also pitched as another possible playable character, but was ultimately rejected due to his moves being too similar to other characters' abilities, and it being difficult to give him power-ups. In the end, I think it was a good choice to add Peach instead of Yoshi, as it not only allows Peach to finally go up against Bowser and kick him in the face, but it also lets the initial roster be an amazing callback to Mario too. And I mean, how would the catsuit even work with Yoshi? Oh god. Speaking of the catsuit, the idea for this power-up came very early in development, as the team wanted a close-up attack ability that wasn't just jumping, and they also wanted something that would allow newer players to clear obstacles easier and climb up walls. And after thinking about all those actions they wanted the player to be able to perform, they realized cats were the perfect animal for this. And so the Cat Bell was born. And Mario was once again able to become a furry. But while the catsuit's idea emerged super early in development, another iconic power-up from this game wasn't conceived until just a few months before the game's release, when a developer accidentally cloned Mario's character model when testing a level. After seeing this hilarious mistake, other members of the team thought it was such a cool mechanic that they ended up scrambling together to implement it last second in the form of the Double Cherry, even making changes to the final boss fight so that it used it.
Super Mario 3D World!
Upon starting the game for the first time and creating a save file, you're met with the opening cutscene. It's the night of the Star Festival and Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Blue Toad are admiring the shooting stars in the night sky, and the beautiful fireworks, until they come across a strange-looking broken pipe along their path. And for probably the first time since the Mario Bros. Arcade game, Mario and Luigi actually use their plumbing skills to fix the strange pipe, until suddenly a bunch of weird items burst out of the pipe, along with a small green fairy. This green fairy warns them of an evil giant green turtle who is capturing all her friends. Until, right on cue, Bowser himself appears, squeezing himself out of the odd pipe, capturing the tiny fairy and descending back down, escaping. Peach, desperate to help the tiny fairy, follows Bowser through the pipe, with the rest of them not far behind. And after a quick ride through this oddly clear pipe, the four are spit out into the Sprixie Kingdom, setting into motion the game and establishing the main plot. I really like this opening. I mean, apart from how pretty the sky looks here with the shooting stars and fireworks, it tells the player the information they need to know in such a colorful way. The visuals here for a Wii U game are great, and the expressiveness the characters have work perfectly with the cartoony art style 3D World goes for. I mean, the way Mario and Luigi fix the pipe, how the characters react to Bowser appearing, and just how silly Bowser looks squished inside the clear pipe, do a great job at setting the goofy tone of this game. But the visuals aren't the only great part of this opening though. The music is also phenomenal. Unlike Galaxy 1 and 2 before it, which used a live orchestra in the form of the Mario Galaxy Orchestra team, 3D World takes a different approach to its music, using a live jazz band known as the Mario 3D World Big Band. And in this opening, this jazz band does an incredible job at setting the atmosphere, but more importantly, establishing Bowser's much more stylish, show-offy vibe he has in this game. He still, of course, is the silly villain we all know and love, but now he's gotten a lot cooler. And I really love how he's portrayed in this game, and specifically this opening. Heading into the first level though, this stage is a great place to test out the 4 different playable characters you have when you first start the game. As I mentioned earlier, each character has a unique playstyle different from each other, which is something I love. Instead of all controlling the same like in the new Super Mario Bros. Games, the characters here have distinct attributes which reflect their personality and character traits. Mario is all around good at everything, showing his experience as the main character of the series, and is a safe pick for new players. Luigi, being slimmer and taller than his brother, jumps a bit higher than him, and due to his slimness, falls a bit slower. However, due to his clumsiness, is very slippery, and can be pretty hard to get the hang of. Peach, due to her dress, can't run as fast as the rest of the characters, but can use it to float in the air for a short period of time, showcasing her elegance as a princess. And Blue Toad, being the shortest of the bunch, is very quick on his feet, and runs insanely fast. But due to his small size and giant toad head, can't jump that high, and falls very quickly. Offering these different playstyles is a great way to spice things up, especially in multiplayer when specific characters could be used to do things others can't, like asking the person playing Peach to float and grab the green star stamp, or asking the Luigi player to boost off someone's head and use their high jumps to reach a place the rest couldn't get to. Usually when playing, I stick to Luigi and sometimes Peach, as Luigi's high jumps are so useful for grabbing green stars just out of reach and always getting the top of the flagpole, and Peach's technical playstyle with her being able to float can also be super useful as well. Overall, the different characters offer so many ways for you to interact with the levels, and definitely spice up multiplayer quite a bit. But as you may know, although you start the game with 4 characters, later into the game this changes. We'll talk about that later though. For now, we have the world map. Unlike 3D Land, which had straight lines for worlds, 3D World gives us fully explorable 3D world maps with a bunch of cool stuff to do. You can of course use this world map as just a level select and follow the established lines, but that's lame. There's a ton of stuff to do here, like find secrets, gamble, and get power-ups from toad houses. Wait, gamble? Yes, one of the many things you can find on the world maps in this game are the slot machines. And upon entering these machines, you get a chance at winning big by matching the power-up icons on the slots. And while most times you'll only leave here with a measly 100 or 200 coins, chump change to an avid Mushroom Kingdom gambler, if you jump to the beat of the music here, you can actually quite easily match 4 of the same power-up icons and win the jackpot. And when I found this out in 2014, 9-year-old me became the richest person in the entire Sprixie Kingdom. Jokes aside though, these slot machine rooms are so fun. The music being a jazzy rendition of the character select theme from Mario 2, and the overall vibe here do a great job at just showing off how unique this game is. Like, why are there random slot machines that show up on the world map that can give you a ton of coins? I don't know, but I love them! You can tell just how much fun the team had working on this game from all the little stuff like this spread around. Like for example, in later worlds you can find these stones on the ground, and if you approach them, you can interact with them by pressing A, which will spawn a pipe. These pipes usually take you to Fire Bros hideouts or mushroom houses, but in World 5 can lead you to the secret golden train level. This stage is filled with tons of coins and is just a blast to go through, and is literally something that most people won't find, but was still put here anyway because the developers wanted to, and I think that's so cool. Enough about world maps though. I think it's time we get into the most important part of this game, the levels themselves. One of the best things about the levels in this game is that everyone has a gimmick, and they never overuse or drive these ideas into the ground, and instead keep constantly introducing new ones. I mean, the amount of ideas you'll see thrown at you just between the first and second world is more than you see throughout the entire runtime of a new Super Mario Bros. Game. Not counting DS, of course. And for a game that is said to have taken a lot of inspiration from that series, is honestly quite surprising. And even though I obviously won't be able to cover every level, I do want to highlight some of my favorites. Starting off with Fuzzy Time Mine. This stage spares no time for introduction, and from the moment you start it, you're immediately met with the threat of the rising Fuzzy Storm chasing after you, with the music urging you to move quickly. However, as quickly as you want to move, you can't, as in order to heighten the stakes of this stage, the level is an auto-scroller. And while at first that may seem annoying, it makes the stage a lot more interesting. Playing this level in multiplayer is always so funny, as everyone is scrambling to collect everything, but also trying to, not be swallowed by the giant fuzzy virus, and leads to a level that in single player or multiplayer is always fun. Another level I really love is Shadow Play Alley. The whole gimmick of this stage is, well, the shadows, with you having to use them to find secrets like this green star hidden up here, or help Captain Toad figure out that this giant Bowser shadow taunting him isn't actually Bowser, but instead his evil twin brother, Woodser. The best part of this stage is that half of it takes place behind a wall, with the only thing you being able to see are the shadows of what's going on back there. Which leads to cool secrets like this stamp, which seems to be behind a completely unreachable wall, but is just instead packed in with some crates. And moving on, we have Hands-On Hall. This level is based on old traditional Japanese dojos, with the music here reflecting this, being one of the coolest songs in the game. Using the Wii U gamepad or pointer on the Switch version, you can slide open the shoji to reveal a path forward, or just fight a group of enemies. There's also these Bowser gongs you can hit, and I just love that. This stage also features an outdoor section where you scale your way to the top section of the dojo, collecting the key coins and avoiding the spikes. I absolutely adore when stages have unique themes like this. I mean, a cool gimmick is awesome enough, but the actual level itself having a unique dedicated theme, and in this level's case, unique music track as well, just makes it stand out so much more to me, and I will never not enjoy revisiting this stage. Moving on, the last level I want to highlight is Sprawling Savannah. You know how I said earlier that after 3D Land made things even more linear, fans were begging for another open sandbox style 3D Mario? Well, Sprawling Savannah uses that as its gimmick, and as the name implies, is a giant sprawling savanna level, where you can explore this big open area to find secrets and collectibles. This is so cool. Using something like this as a gimmick showcases just how creative the 3D World team got with this game, and is something I will always appreciate about it. Overall, 3D World has some absolutely phenomenal stages. And even though I wasn't able to highlight every amazing one, honorable mention goes out to the Mario Kart theme track Mount Mustache, The sheer level of uniqueness here makes this one of the most replayable Mario games. But while the main game stages are great, they aren't the only levels here. Yes, making his first playable debut, Captain Toad is a playable character here, and features a handful of unique levels completely different from everything else in the game. These levels are bite-sized diorama type stages, and see Captain Toad navigating around using the environment to elevate him, as his whole gimmick is that he's super slow and can't jump. At first glance, these seem really out of place here. I mean, no jumping in a Mario game, but they actually work really well as their own thing, and near the end get really fun despite being so different from the main game. The team had so many leftover ideas for Captain Toad as well, that they ended up making an entire game around it 1 year later in the form of Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, which is just crazy. I absolutely love the design of these stages. They're so cute, and a great change of pace from time to time. The only downside is that in the Wii U version, since these levels sometimes required the touchscreen, only one person could play. However, in the Switch port with the introduction of the pointer, this was changed, and now up to 4 people could play the Captain Toad levels. And it's hilarious seeing everyone fight for the camera here to see where they're going. Overall, these handful of stages are great, and it's cool to see Captain Toad get big representation in this game. Speaking of multiplayer in the Captain Toad levels though, the actual multiplayer in general in 3D World is amazing. Like I mentioned earlier, a big goal of the team early into this game's development was to implement New Super Mario Bros.-esque 4-player couch co-op into a 3D game. And if I'm being completely honest, the multiplayer here works better than those games. A big issue I have with 4-player co-op in New Super Mario Bros. Games is that while it's super fun to get a group of friends together to play, it's hard to play for more than 30 minutes as it's way too chaotic, and there's not enough room for everyone to do what they want to. With 3D World, however, this issue is fixed with, well, the introduction of the third dimension, giving players so much more space to goof around, and actually be able to do stuff without bumping into another player every 5 seconds. And regardless of if you're playing with 1, 2, or 3 other people, the multiplayer here is Mario Couch Co-op at its best. Not encouraging you to sabotage or get in the way of your— oh my, how did they beat me? The ranking system. At the end of every stage in multiplayer, the score each player got individually is tallied up, and a crown is given to the person with the highest score. The best way to get score is by collecting green stars, stamps, and reaching the top of the flagpole. And this simple but evil system has caused fights to erupt across the world, and I love that. Sabotage was something people kinda just did to their friends for fun in the new Super Mario Bros. Games. But here, it's actively encouraged by the ranking system. And with the much more open levels here because of this being a 3D game, the chaos can get absolutely crazy in the best way possible. Super Mario 3D World's multiplayer will always be a blast. And with the Switch version allowing you to play with friends online, no one is safe from being terrorized in this game. Speaking of the Switch version though, I wanted to take a minute to highlight some of the amazing changes it made to the game. Obviously there's Bowser's Fury, a completely separate single-player side mode that was this game's main selling point on Switch, but there were actually quite a few changes made to 3D World itself. Of course there's the 4-player Captain Toad levels and online multiplayer I mentioned earlier, but there's also a bunch of small changes that just make this game a complete package. For starters, every character's base speed has been boosted significantly, to the point where the slowest character, Peach, is faster in the Switch version than the fastest character in the Wii U version, Blue Toad. Along with this, the UI and menus have been changed to look much sleeker than the Wii U versions. And there was even a new move introduced here, the mid-air dive, that has helped me get to just out of reach places more times than I can count. And alongside these changes are also so many other minor ones that make this game feel just that little bit better to play, and really shows a lot of dedication from Nintendo to make this port as good as it possibly could be, and makes the Switch version without a doubt the superior version overall. Bowser's portrayal in this game is easily one of, if not my favorite depiction of him in the entire Mario series. His jazzy theme, newfound confidence, and oh my god, when did Bowser get a pimp muscle car? Instead of feeling like a genuine threat like he did in the Galaxy games, here he's more of a cartoony mob boss villain, and drives this crazy muscle car that yes, I own the Lego set of. And during your first encounter with him at the end of World 1, he sits in the back of this thing, throwing explosive soccer balls and shooting fireballs at you. This is a great first fight, as it's not only super fun to smack Bowser in the face with the soccer balls and admire his purple muscle car, but the visuals here are incredible, and leads to me sometimes dragging this fight on just so I can look at the background. Bowser isn't the only boss you fight in this game though. Throughout the different castles and boss levels here, you'll encounter returning bosses like Boom Boom and Pom Pom who have pretty decent fights, but also super cool new ones like Histocrat and Motley Boss Blob, with Histocrat's fight and theme reinforcing the cartoony and jazzy vibes of this game so much. I also love how you fight some of these bosses on a stage, with lights coming on when enemies appear, almost like it's a show being watched. And all of the jazzy showmanship Bowser and his minions ooze throughout the entirety of the game comes full circle in the final world of this game. No, not this world, the final world. In what seems to be the final level of this game, Bowser's Lava Lake Keep, you seemingly defeat Bowser and send him plummeting to his death in the lava. However, right as you think you've beaten this level, Bowser pulls back the end card and reappears, once again capturing all the Sprixie princesses, and flees through a clear pipe to the secret final world, World Bowser. This place is without a doubt the coolest world in the entire game. It's literally a Bowser-themed amusement park, filled to the brim with neon lights and even featuring a Ferris wheel. And after making your way through this world, you're met with the true final main level of the game, the Great Tower of Bowser Land. This stage starts off with very simple platforming challenges, just kind of meant to showcase the giant, ominous tower that shadows over the entire park. And after making your way to the tower, Bowser appears, blocking your path and holding a cat bell. Oh god, no, please don't let this be what I think it is. Bowser's a furry now too. Yes, this final fight doesn't see you going up against Bowser, but rather Meowser. And yes, that is his official name and I love it. The first portion of this fight sees you scaling up the tower slowly, as Bowser claws and scratches at you, trying to stop you from getting any further. This first phase is pretty okay, but once you make it up, things get so much better. Bowser sits atop a POW block, spewing fireballs at you, which you of course try to avoid, until you jump and hit the POW, sending him flying away, with the clear pipe path appearing. And upon entering this clear pipe, this is by far my favorite sequence in the game. The music kicking in and Bowser reappearing, animalistically chasing you up the tower, and seeing the neon red light appear off screen when he uses the double cherry, it's amazing. And climbing up the final portion of the tower as tens of Bowsers appear from the walls and chase you relentlessly, before you finally reach the top of the tower and hit the POW block 4 times in a row, blasting Bowser away like Team Rocket, will never not be satisfying, and serves as an insanely action-packed end to a marvelous game. Just kidding, there's actually 4 more worlds. Yes, after completing the main story, a rocket will appear in the first world. And upon entering this rocket, you're sent to World Star, the first of the 4 post-game worlds. World Star features all new levels, with one even being a callback to Super Mario 3D Land, Super Block Land, even featuring that game's main theme as the song for the level. There's also another really cool level here called Super Galaxy, which at first just seems like a cool homage to Super Mario Galaxy, but instead ends up being this game basically turning into Super Mario Galaxy 3, with you at the end of the level unlocking the 5th playable character of this game, Rosalina. Rosalina's defining attribute as a character is that she can use the spin move from Mario Galaxy. However, she can't use this when using any power-ups, sadly. Introducing Rosalina as a playable character in the post-game is one of the most out-of-left-field things I've ever seen in a mainline Mario game, but I love it. Her inclusion is not only an amazing nod to the Mario Galaxy games and their influence on 3D World, but her unique playstyle makes her actually fun to play as. as the spin can be pretty useful when you don't have a power-up. And after completing World Star, you unlock World Mushroom and Flower, 2 worlds merged together. And instead of featuring brand new levels, feature remix levels from the main game that are just awesome. These remix levels change the time of day of certain stages, add more obstacles to them, change their gimmick, and overall just make levels we've already seen feel fresh again. And in my eyes is a great way to add substantial unique post-game content, without having to conceptualize completely new levels, and instead injecting leftover ideas into these remix stages. And all of this, the new worlds, remixed levels, and introduction of Rosalina, all culminate together in the true final world, World Crown. In order to unlock this world, you must have collected every single green star in all 11 worlds, all the stamps, and gotten a golden flagpole on every single stage. And only after this will you unlock one final rocket leading to World Crown. The song that plays in this world is none other than Rosalina's Observatory from Super Mario Galaxy, with the world featuring one final main level, Champions Road. In my eyes, Champions Road is the hardest stage in any mainline Mario game. Harder than the Perfect Run, and definitely much more difficult than Darker Side from Odyssey. This stage relies on incredibly quick and tight platforming to make it difficult, with the ending section being the hardest, with you having to collect 5 key coins whilst not being able to stop running due to the floor being boost pads, and constantly having to jump to dodge the shockwaves of the ring burners. Completing this stage for the first time feels incredible, and is the true end to a near perfect Mario game. Super Mario 3D World was the last game fans wanted to see Nintendo announce as the Wii U's big 3D Mario game. I mean, a follow-up to the most linear 3D Mario yet? This game surely wasn't going to be good. But when most people gave up hope on the game before it even came out, Super Mario 3D World delivered, and is an essential Mario game that any person who just likes video games should play at least once. This game is constantly showering you with new ideas, and just when you think it would start to slow down and get unoriginal, it throws a curveball at you and starts having you board Bowser's Bullet Train, and fighting a fat snake whose jazzy theme can't keep you from not at least nodding your head to the song. The soundtrack here is one of the best in Nintendo's history. The Mario 3D World Big Band did an amazing job at bringing the Sprixie Kingdom to life, with their incredible jazz performances. And the way Bowser is portrayed, being this arrogant, cartoony villain, driving around in this absolute pimp mobile of a car, kidnapping fairies while he builds this giant neon-lit amusement park high in the sky. There's always something going on in this game. And the sheer amount of unique and creative levels and ideas it has makes this one of my most replayed Mario games ever. The multiplayer fixed the big issues the New Soup game's multiplayer had, as the third dimension gives players much more space to move around. And the ranking system at the end of each level will always keep friends engaged and wanting to mess with each other. The amount of memories I have with this game, whether it be playing alone or with a group of friends, will always make me appreciate it. And with all the quality of life changes it got on Switch, alongside the introduction of Bowser's Fury, Super Mario 3D World is one of the absolute best games on the system, and is a must-buy. It is truly the most underrated mainline Mario game, and one that I will always love. Initially released worldwide on May 30th, 2014 for the Wii U, and later re-released as an enhanced port for the Nintendo Switch on April 28th, 2017, Mario Kart 8 is the 8th entry in the Mario Kart series. Yeah, they got real creative with the names after Mario Kart Wii. Development for the game started in early 2012, with the team initially deciding on a drill that allowed players to dig and drive underground as the game's main gimmick. However, this idea was quickly scrapped when someone on the team suggested anti-gravity as a possible mechanic, as they found it to be a much more interesting and enticing concept than simply being able to dig a hole. Along with scrapping the drill mechanic though, sometime during development, the team had plans to finally add Kamek to the roster, a character that was originally planned for Mario Kart 64, but was replaced with Donkey Kong late into that game's development. Unfortunately, similar to Mario Kart 64, for some unknown reason, Kamek was scrapped again, with only his icon remaining deep within the game's files. Luckily though, Kamek was eventually added 9 years later in the Booster Course Pass. And about a year and a half into Mario Kart 8's development, we would finally get our first look at the game during E3 2013. This trailer not only showed off the brand new anti-gravity mechanic, but also confirmed the return of the gliding and underwater racing mechanics from Mario Kart 7. The big takeaway from this reveal though, had to be the visuals. I mean, for the consoles they released on, Mario Karts prior to 8 never looked bad per se, but they definitely weren't pushing the limits of what we thought was possible graphically from Nintendo. This game, however, was looking like it could be the most graphically impressive Nintendo game ever. And combine that with the hype of 7's gliding and underwater racing returning, the new anti-gravity mechanic, and just the fact we were getting a brand new Mario Kart, needless to say, this trailer had people very excited for the game, and motivated the team to keep putting their all into this entry's development.
Mario Kart 8!
From the very moment you open the game, Mario Kart 8 is already showing off by trumping all other Mario Kart title screens. Instead of just seeing the same image and hearing the same voice line every time you open up the game like every other Mario Kart's title screen, 8 decides that for some reason, that's not enough. In this game, you have a plethora of different possible title screens. You have some with Mario, one with Rosalina, one with Bowser, one with Link, but by far the absolute best and funniest has to be
Luigi Kart 8!
there was literally no reason for Nintendo to put this much, hell, any effort at all into the title screen, but I absolutely love that they did. The title screen music here is also just a banger, and for the first time in Mario Kart history, isn't digitally composed, but is actually performed live by a big band, and just makes it hit that much harder. There's even a part of the song that plays the title theme from Super Mario Kart, and it's just amazing. Heading away from the title screen though, and into the actual game itself, you have quite a bit of options here on the main menu. Single player, multiplayer, online play, wireless play, and some smaller options that let you do stuff like listen to the game's OST, look at your stats and replays, and even some Nintendo Labo integration that allows you to control the game with a Toy-Con creation. For now though, we're going to be starting off with the single player mode, which brings us to the character roster, and oh my god. At the initial release of this game back on the Wii U in 2014, its character roster was much smaller, with half of the roster being locked behind completing certain cups. However, with the release of the 2 waves of DLC on the Wii U in 2015, the new characters added at the release of Deluxe in 2017, and the 8 more new characters added in the Booster Course Pass in 2023, Mario Kart 8 went from having one of the weakest character rosters in the Mario Kart series to having easily the best and most diverse roster in the entire series. Sure, there are some odd picks here like Baby Rosalina and the ever infamous Pink Gold Peach, but they are more than made up for with the return of fan favorites like King Boo, Funky Kong, and Petey Piranha, as well as some of the newcomers like Kamek and Pauline. I also love how certain characters like the Yoshis and Shy Guys have different color variations you can choose for them, that even change their icon on the character select menu. Once you select a character though, you head into the kart selection. Here we see the return of the vehicle customization from Mario Kart 7, which allows you to individually choose which vehicle frame, wheels, and glider you'll use. When you initially reach this section, you'll only have access to a handful of different parts to use. However, just like in 7, by collecting coins and races, you'll gradually unlock more and more parts over time, until eventually you'll have more than you know what to do with. Seriously, after unlocking every kart part in the game, there are more than 8,000 possible combinations you can create. And just like I said when I was talking about Mario Kart 7 a while ago, allowing players this much customization is a double-edged sword in a lot of ways. On the positive side of things, it can be really fun for newcomers and veterans alike to have access to all these options in order to create some funny loadouts. And the sheer amount of unlockable parts can encourage you to keep playing the game with the goal of unlocking them all and being able to experiment more with insane loadouts. But on the negative side of things though, shoving all these stats and thousands of possible combinations down a new player's throat can be incredibly daunting and make it really difficult for them to find a loadout that suits their playstyle. Regardless though, in the end, I do heavily prefer 7 and 8's cart customization over the older games'. It's not the best, but it's definitely a big step above what we had before. But enough about character rosters and cart customization. Let's get into what really makes a Mario Kart game great: the track selection. At release, Mario Kart 8 had a respectable 8 cups under its belt, the standard for Mario Karts at the time. However, with the release of the DLC in 2015, it got another 4 cups, upping its total track count to a staggering 48 unique courses. And I gotta say, the track selection here is pretty incredible. The new tracks here are some of the most creative and unique Mario Kart tracks in the entire series. And a lot of that is due to this game's brand new mechanic, anti-gravity. Anti-gravity allows for absolutely insane track design. Physics just don't matter anymore. Levels can twist and turn to the track designer's will, and in turn lead to some really cool moments in some courses. Like in Shy Guy Falls, where the anti-grav allows you to scale up a giant waterfall then shoot back down it at Mach speed. Or in Mount Wario, where the anti-grav literally lets you drive on the side of a giant running dam. The only real gripe I'd say I have with the anti-grav is that a lot of the time, despite you literally being upside down or completely sideways, the camera just doesn't reflect that, and it can sometimes take away from the craziness of it all. The Mario Kart TV replays, though, do a very good job at showing off the anti-grav. Speaking of the new tracks, though, outside of their design or use of this game's mechanics, their theming is just amazing. One of my favorite tracks in the game, Sunshine Airport, is not a favorite of mine because of its design or anything, but just purely because of the fact that it's an airport-themed Mario Kart track, and I think that that's a super cool and original idea. Same goes for courses like Mario Kart Stadium and Toad Harbor. The atmosphere and vibes of these tracks is just so good. And combine that with the amazing visuals, it's no wonder a lot of us still enjoy these tracks after over 9 years. I mean, honestly, I'd say of the 16 brand new tracks in this game, there are only 2 stinkers here. Those being Bone Dry Dunes and Rainbow Road. Bone Dry Dunes is just kind of boring, in my opinion. I've never been a huge fan of desert tracks, but this one in particular is bottom of the barrel. The slippery sand road along with the horrendously sharp turns just made this track not at all fun to drive on. The red sand aesthetic never really caught on for me. The layout is just random. And the anti-gravity section doesn't add anything to the track and doesn't even need to be there in the first place. The only reason this track exists in the first place is because Nintendo thinks for some reason that every Mario Kart needs a desert track, when in reality we should only get one if they have a good idea for one. Rainbow Road, on the other hand, isn't as bad as Bone Dry Dunes, but it's also not up to par with all the other tracks in the base game. I think the main reason this Rainbow Road fails is that it deviates way too far from what a Rainbow Road should be. Don't get me wrong, the space station theme is incredibly cool, and when it's done well in this track, it's done well. But honestly, that theme would work so much better as its own track. Because here, while you do have those space station elements, since it's trying so hard to be a Rainbow Road, you miss out on so many of the potential course elements a space station themed track would have. At the same time though, since it's still partially trying to be space station themed as well, it just gives the track this man-made feel, which is not at all what a Rainbow Road should be. It's missed potential on both sides in a lot of ways, which in the end leads to a track I don't hate because it does have some cool elements, but also one I don't exactly love because of the contradicting themes. On a more positive note though, we have the retro tracks. Retro tracks have been a staple of Mario Kart ever since DS, or as some would argue, Super Circuit, and in all games that featured them up to this point, there wasn't much done to change these tracks to take advantage of the new game's mechanics or make them fit in with all the new ones. They were just kinda there, and it made it incredibly obvious which tracks were new and which were returning. In Mario Kart 8, however, they went one step further with the retro tracks, and instead of just bringing them back, They completely revamped them. A track like Toad's Turnpike from Mario Kart 64, which was originally a pretty boring and uninspired figure 8 course, with basic cars on the road as its obstacles, is made much more interesting in Mario Kart 8. With the track receiving a beautiful visual overhaul, cars that you can trick and glide off of, and an anti-gravity section on the side which allows you to drive on the wall, speeding across boost pads. Wario Stadium now has an anti-gravity and underwater section. Rail Raceway is visually overhauled and is genuinely one of the best looking tracks in the entire game. SNES Donut Plains 3 was given a bunch of shortcuts and new paths to make it feel less flat and boring. GBA Mario Circuit has a raised up anti-gravity section. It's so cool to see these tracks given as much care and polish as the new ones, especially in the visual department. I mean, just look at what an SNES track looks like in Wii compared to 8. The step up in effort is very apparent. The shining star of this game's retro selection though, and the one Nintendo loves so much they put it on the box art of the deluxe version, is N64 Rainbow Road. This track is technically the very final course of the base game, and what a finale it is. The music, the visuals, and even the revamped design of the course is just absolutely jaw-dropping. Sure, it's a bummer that the track was made into a section-based course, making it so you only get to go around it once, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it's just a blast to race on. It's quite ironic that the best Rainbow Road in the base game, and the one that takes the best advantage of the anti-gravity mechanic, is a remake of a Rainbow Road from an N64 game. But hey, that's just how it is sometimes. Overall, the revamps to the retro courses in this game make them look and feel a lot less like old tracks to new players, while also allowing veteran players to see their favorites from past Mario Karts in a whole new and visually stunning light. But that's just the tracks from the base Wii U game. Available as paid DLC for the Wii U version, and just included for free in the deluxe Switch version, Mario Kart 8 also has another 4 cups. What's interesting about this DLC though, is apart from the amazing brand new tracks and the absolutely stellar retro tracks included here, it also features some courses based on other Nintendo franchises like Animal Crossing, F-Zero, and The Legend of Zelda. This is so cool. You wouldn't expect Mario Kart courses based on Animal Crossing or Zelda to fit in or even be designed well, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. The way these courses slip in elements from their franchises, like the coins being rupees in the Zelda track, or the items in the air being held up by red balloons on the Animal Crossing track, do a really good job at making these franchises be represented well, and just in general show the amount of thought that was put into them. And I mean, the F-Zero tracks, they fit right at home here. I'm honestly surprised it took them this long to include them in a Mario Kart game. They are incredibly fun courses to race on, especially at high speeds. And speaking of high speeds, how could I forget about the brand new CC introduced in Mario Kart 8? 200cc. At release, Mario Kart 8 originally only had the 4cc options we come to expect in Mario Karts: 50, 100, 150, and 150 mirror mode. However, as part of an April Fool's joke update in 2015, Mario Kart 8 would receive a brand new speed class, 200cc. Apart from being incredibly difficult to control, but a lot of fun to master, this speed class completely broke some of the tracks in the base game. I mean, you literally clip into the ceiling on Music Park after going off the glider ramp. And on tracks like Dolphin Shoals and Mario Kart Stadium, the speed you have allows you to completely fly over shortcuts you would only usually be able to cut with mushrooms. 200cc is a lot of fun in my opinion. I love just flying across tracks at an absolutely absurd speed, and cutting all these shortcuts that just aren't possible in the lower classes. Although I can understand why a lot of people hate it, as on slippery tracks like Cheeseland or Sherbetland, it can be incredibly difficult to stay on the track, even if you have mastered brake drifting. In the end though, I think 200cc was a really cool thing to just randomly drop in an update, and I really hope we see it, and maybe even a possible 250cc mode in the next Mario Kart game. In terms of items, this game features an incredible variety of them. You obviously have the staples of every Mario Kart like the green and red shells, star, mushrooms, bullet bill, and blue shell. But you also have some more obscure returning items like the feather from Super Mario Kart, although it's exclusive to Battle Mode, and the Boo, which was missing ever since Mario Kart DS. In terms of new items though, you got the Piranha Plant, which speeds you up, eating almost anything in its path. The Boomerang Flower, which you can throw in front of or behind you with 3 uses. The Crazy 8, which replaces the Lucky 7 from Mario Kart 7, just adding one more item. And probably the coolest new item in the game, the Super Horn. A horn that, when used on a blue shell, completely destroys it. Ever since its debut in Mario Kart 64, the blue shell has always been the most controversial item in the series. Some find it incredibly unfair and the thing to always ruin their race right before they're about to win, while others find it to be the item that balances the game, stopping skilled players from getting too far ahead of the pack, and humbling them. With the addition of the Super Horn though, and it being possible to roll as an item in first place, players now have a way to avoid the shell, and I think this was Nintendo's way of appeasing both crowds, by not completely removing the blue shell, but nerfing it a bit. But while the blue shell is a controversial item that's loved by some and hated by others, Mario Kart 8 introduces one more new item that is universally hated by almost everyone: the coin. Returning from Super Circuit and Mario Kart 7, coins were littered along tracks, with each coin you picked up gradually increasing your top speed, with the max you could hold at once being 10. In Mario Kart 8, coins return and function exactly like they did in that game. They're littered across the track and you can only hold a max of 10. However, along with this, you can now receive a coin as an item in the item roulette, with it being extremely common in first place. The coins were a big issue in the Wii U version of Mario Kart 8, as you could only get one item at a time then, and if you were in first and needed a defensive item but instead got a coin, you were kinda screwed. In the Switch version, however, while coins still were an issue, the ability to hold 2 items at once now did remedy it a little bit. Speaking of version differences though, I think it's time we talk about one of the things Mario Kart 8 did the worst and 8 Deluxe did the best: Battle Mode. Following Mario Kart 64, which many believe to have featured the best battle mode in the series, the mode just seemed to be getting less and less attention in each new entry. I mean, don't get me wrong, none of these games' battle modes were bad per se. I quite enjoyed Double Dash and DS's, but they definitely weren't doing much new with it. With Mario Kart 8's, however, they literally just gave up. You only have one mode here, Balloon Battle, and instead of battling on courses specifically made and designed for the mode, you battle on Moo Moo Meadows. Yeah. They literally just took 8 tracks from the base game that you could go through backwards or normally, and called it a day on the mode. These tracks were not at all made for this, and a lot of the time leads to matches feeling incredibly empty and boring. The Wii U version's battle mode literally just looks like Nintendo forgot to add the mode, and like a day before release realized, and just threw together the most boring and uninspired battle mode in the entire series. It's honestly embarrassing, and by far everyone's biggest flaw with the Wii U game. With 8 Deluxe, however, Nintendo took the battle mode criticism to heart, and put their absolute all into 8 Deluxe's rendition of the mode. Instead of dumbass Moo Moo Meadows and Dry Dry Desert as the battle tracks, we instead got 5 brand new and 3 returning battle tracks. Those being Battle Stadium, Sweet Sweet Kingdom, Dragon Palace, Lunar Colony, 3DS Woohoo Town, GCN Luigi's Mansion, SNES Battle Course 1, and Urchin Underpass. Along with that, rather than just getting the basic ass balloon battle as the only mode, 8 Deluxe instead has 5 unique modes, the most in the series, with those modes being Balloon Battle, Renegade Roundup, Bob-omb Blast, Coin Runners, and Shine Thief. And, as I mentioned earlier, 8 Deluxe also sees the return of the feather item from Super Mario Kart, which is exclusive to this mode. I absolutely adore 8 Deluxe's battle mode, and it's a shame no one talks about or even plays it that much anymore. The physics are done incredibly well, and makes things like doing a quick U-turn feel quick and snappy. The music is top-notch, as is all music in this game, and the sheer amount of modes and maps offer a great variety here, with each mode honestly being super fun in their own right. The completely brand new mode here, Renegade Roundup, is so underrated. It's a blast to try and hide away to avoid being caught by the piranha plants. I can obviously see why even after 8 Deluxe completely revamped 8's battle mode and made it so much more diverse and original, that many still consider 64's to be the best. But man, is 8 Deluxe's battle mode just an absolute joy. And in my opinion, the best in the series. Moving on though, we have the online, and it's done super well here. I love the ability to either play globally online against everyone to up your overall global score, open a quick room with friends, or join a tournament that focuses on a specific rule set like no items or pure 200cc. I also really appreciate the change to worldwide races, where now instead of letting you pick from the entire game's track selection before a race, you only get the choice between 3 randomly selected tracks, or just random. It stops people from struggling to know what courses they want to pick, especially with 8 Deluxe's insane amount of tracks, and helps races start faster as the timer isn't always run out because everyone was stuck on what track they wanted. In terms of the actual online itself though, it's one of the better Nintendo games lag-wise. I'm almost never experiencing connection issues when I play online, although it does still happen sometimes. Overall, online multiplayer in this game is good, and offers a great way to test your skills and see how many points you can accumulate over time. After the immense success of Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii, the team behind the revival game, Retro Studios, proved they were more than capable to carry on DK's 2D legacy. And because of all the leftover ideas they had from their time working on Returns, were asked by Nintendo to create a sequel game for their new console, the Wii U. Development began almost immediately after the release of Returns, with Retro wasting no time getting back to the drawing board for this sequel. One of the main complaints many longtime DK fans had with Returns was the lack of other playable Kongs. I mean, outside of Cranky in his shop and Diddy helping DK with his jetpack ability, many fans missed the family of Kongs that were present in the original Donkey Kong Country games. So, one of the first things the team did was work on how they could implement the other Kongs into the game. Along with this, they also realized the setting couldn't just be the same DK Island from Returns, as it basically had been all but explored in that game, and it would be pretty underwhelming to use the same island 2 games in a row, and would definitely not help with setting the 2 games apart. So the team decided pretty early on to have DK blown away from the island, and have the premise of the game be him and friends trying to return there and reclaim it. Ironically, New Super Mario Bros. U, a game developed around the same time as this one, also followed a pretty similar story, with Mario and friends being tossed far away from Peach's castle, and their goal being to return. Although I imagine this was probably a coincidence. Early concept art from this game's development proves that setting the sequel apart from Returns was one of the team's biggest focuses. One piece shows DK using a small bird to glide down a bramble-filled hole, another shows early concept art for the game's 5th world, Juicy Jungle, with a bunch of pigs working the cogs of the factory, and one even shows DK on the moon, truly showing that they wanted this game to be out of this world. And as development neared the finish line, the game was finally revealed to the public at E3 2013. But people were not happy with this reveal. You see, as much as everyone loved Returns on the Wii and thought Retro Studios did an amazing job, this was not the game they were expecting from them. Retro Studios is most well known for the Metroid Prime games, with all 3 entries being beloved by fans. So seeing a studio known for creating these amazing 3D Metroidvanias making another 2D Donkey Kong just a couple years after the last one was really disappointing for a lot of people, and led to not much excitement and hype around this game's release, alongside the fact that the Wii U was already failing. Things got so bad for this game's promotional run that Nintendo made a full-on trailer for Cranky Kong's introduction. Yes, that's what will get people to buy the Wii U. We tell them you can play as this old monkey with a cane. But regardless, after a not so successful promotional run, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze was released on February 13th, 2014. Upon starting the game, you're greeted with this incredible opening cutscene. DK and the gang are celebrating his birthday, and considering the fact that this game came out in 2014, exactly 20 years after the first Donkey Kong Country game, this party is likely in celebration of that as well. But while DK's enjoying his party, off in the distance, an evil group of Vikings called the Snowmads set their sights on Donkey Kong Island, planning to invade and take over the island. And with one gust of his enchanted horn, the main antagonist of this game, Lord Frederick, sends a giant ice dragon to the island. And upon noticing the sudden decrease in temperature after a snowflake puts out the candle on DK's cake, the Kongs quickly go outside to investigate, only to be blown sky high by the ice dragon as it freezes over the island and the snowmans establish their rule. I absolutely adore this opening. Not only is it unbelievably well animated and super cute with DK celebrating his birthday, the plot it sets up is so much more interesting than Returns in my opinion. The Snowmads are a powerful group of Vikings, who seemingly with the intense power their leader possesses, take over any islands they want, this time choosing Donkey Kong Island. Having the plot of the game being DK and friends trying to return home instantly hooked me. The whole time I was wondering what it would finally be like to reach the island and see what's changed with it being entirely frozen over. There's definitely a world where this game's plot was centered entirely around being on the frozen island and exploring it that way, but I'm so glad they chose to just keep it as the final world. As while the ice theme is cool, I don't think a whole game centered around ice levels would be fun at all. Heading into the first level, we see DK crash land right into an abandoned plane, and have to punch out of it by mashing X and Y. This first level does a really great job at introducing the player to the vibe of this game and how its stages work. It's incredibly obvious from the start how much of a focus this game has on bringing its levels to life. Even though you've just crash landed here, this place feels lived in. The environments and backgrounds have so much soul put into them, and makes it unbelievably easy to immerse yourself in this world. The coolest part of this opening level, though, has to be the reintroduction of underwater sections. In most games, especially 2D platformers, water levels are some of the most hated stages ever. They can be incredibly slow, annoying to control, and overall not very fun. The Donkey Kong Country series, however, is one of the only game series to not fall into this category. Its underwater levels are beloved by fans, and some of the most immersive levels in those games. With Donkey Kong Country Returns though, water levels were mysteriously absent, leaving many disappointed. But Tropical Freeze reintroducing this, in its first level mind you, sets the tone that this game isn't just a return to the series, it's an evolution. And the changes to the underwater sections cement this. Now you have an oxygen meter and have to collect bubbles to keep DK from drowning. Along with that, underwater controls have been very refined, making movement feel smooth but realistic to how swimming in actual water feels. The best new thing introduced with the water controls though has to be the little boost you now get by pressing X or Y. This makes swimming feel so much better, and makes the water sections of this game really fun and not at all boring or tedious. Speaking of controls though, this game is easily the best Donkey Kong has ever felt as well. One of the biggest things that held Returns back was its reliance on motion controls for some of DK's main moves. For example, in that game, if you wanted to roll, you had to shake the remote. If you wanted to use DK's ground slam attack, something essential in tons of levels, you had to shake the remote. And if you wanted to use that weird blow ability, you again had to shake the remote. As someone who played through and beat Returns on the Wii before the HD version came to Switch and fixed the motion control issues, it was incredibly annoying to deal with. And playing Tropical Freeze felt like a breath of fresh air with how much less my hands had to constantly shake. The only time I was shaking during my Tropical Freeze playthrough was when I realized how many people watch my videos and aren't subscribed. So go check that out. After beating the first stage though, you're introduced to the world map. And while it unfortunately doesn't have different variations of the theme for different worlds like in Returns, this rendition might be my favorite. It's an absolute banger. Speaking of the world maps though, they are really cool. Unlike 2D Mario games, which often fall into the bland habit of having grass, desert, ice, beach worlds, etc., the Donkey Kong Country series has always been super unique with its world types, and Tropical Freeze is no different. The first world, Lost Mangroves, is this overgrown jungle with a bunch of ruins. They're incorporated pretty well into the levels, and for a first world, it's not bad. Although it does have a strong resemblance to the first world of Returns, with it having a focus on jungles and ruins. The second world though, Autumn Heights, is a big step up. It's a mountainous grassy region filled with windmills, birch and pine trees, and a giant owl-shaped mountain at its peak. This world takes great advantage of its themes, incorporating all the things I listed into its levels. You got windmill-themed levels, mountain-themed levels, and falling leaf-themed levels. My favorite stage in this world is definitely Horntop Bob. It sees you platforming by using the air blown from the horns to progress, and the time they go off is linked with the music. So if you get a good rhythm going, you can pretty much time every jump. The third world, though, is where things get really interesting. Bright Savannah is obviously a Savannah-themed world, but it doesn't just stop there. The first level here is probably when it really clicked for me how much soul this game has. The music here is incredibly tribal, and combined with the moving elephant, zebra, and giraffe platforms that seem to be dancing with the music, the vibes here are immaculate. This is a place I actually wish I could go to. Retro Studios did an incredible job bringing the worlds of this game to life, with this world literally being alive with all its moving parts. Things kind of slow down with World 4 Seabreeze Cove just being your basic beach world, but this is where you find this game's fully underwater levels, and they are magnificent. From the beautiful ambience of Abyss Abyss, to the fast-moving parts of Irate 8. While this world may falter a bit in its basic theming, its levels are top-notch. Theming-wise, things ramp up again with Juicy Jungle. Where the concept art I showed earlier for this world showed it being manually run by pigs, in the final game, it's a completely automatic fruit and juice factory. And the way this idea is incorporated into the levels is nothing short of incredible. All the moving parts of this factory are shown in these levels, from the fruit being harvested to how it's transported, and eventually to how it's sliced up and juiced. I love how instead of having this theme just be in the background to bring this world to life, you actively are making your way through it, with a lot of the platforms you jump across directly being caused by the factory, like jumping on these sliced fruits to cross these spinning blades, or riding the watermelons across these conveyor belts. It's a great way to make the world even more immersive outside of its backgrounds, and I love it. This game may be a 2D platformer, but it has all the soul and love you'd see in a big 3D game, and goes to show that Retro wasn't just holding back because this was another 2D DK game. The sixth and final world of the main campaign, Donkey Kong Island, is pretty awesome as well. Alongside being completely frozen over, changing the entire vibe of this place, each world from Donkey Kong Country Returns is represented here by a level, and I adore that. Running through and seeing the places I explored in the previous game be completely changed and frozen over was a really fun touch. Seeing DK's frozen house at the beginning of the first level, the beaches and seas from the second world frozen over, the mines and caves of the fourth world becoming icicle caverns that are slowly falling apart, and the cliff world now being completely shrouded in a blizzard as you ascend it is awesome. And these iconic locations don't feel alien in this game. Just because everything's frozen over doesn't mean the remnants of what this island was aren't still visible. And noticing those little things after playing Returns was one of the coolest parts of this world for me. Overall, the worlds in this game are a definite step up from Returns. Not only do they all feel unique and different from each other, their levels are so much more alive and take so much advantage of their setting to create the most immersive levels in any 2D platformer I've ever played. But speaking of 2D, Tropical Freeze doesn't let that limitation stop it from creating some pretty cool semi-3D sections. In a lot of levels, the camera winds around what you're doing, with one of the best early examples being the minecart scene in World 1 that has you winding down this tree. The game is constantly taking advantage of the camera and its 3D visuals to make this feel like a lot more than a left-to-right game. In some of the rocket barrel levels, the camera will pan to an angle almost behind DK, to not only give you a better view of what's ahead, but to make it feel less tangled to a 2D plane. My absolute favorite example of this is in the minecart sections that see the camera fully behind DK, and have you jumping from one rail to another to avoid incoming obstacles. This was something they didn't need to do at all. The game already felt alive enough on its own, but now giving us a better angle of the levels we're exploring is so cool. And I love when the game does this. Another thing I love about this game is the new playable characters, or allies I guess if you're just playing the single player. In Returns, you only had Diddy Kong, and while his jetpack was cool and saved me from so many deaths, the inclusion of Dixie and Cranky in this game makes it so hard to go back to Returns. Dixie's ability is her hair twirl, which is almost a double jump in a way with how much height it gives you. Her hair twirl is a really good mid-air correction tool, helping you align yourself to where you want to land, or giving you that split second to go back on your jump if you realize it's too dangerous. Cranky, on the other hand, uses his cane to bounce you up in the air, higher than a regular jump, and lets you bounce across spikes or land a hit on spike-headed enemies. My favorite use for Cranky is definitely speedrunning levels. You keep all your momentum after a roll with his cane bounce, and getting a rhythm going where you're bouncing across the levels at insane speeds is so fun, and is the only reason I've ever attempted the time attack mode in this game. Having these 3 different allies to choose from in levels gives players so many more ways to tackle them, and I love that. If you need to hover above things and generally just be more cautious, you can use Diddy Kong. If you're hunting for secrets and like the extra height boosts, use Dixie. And if you're a crazy speedrunner who wants to bounce across the world, you can use Cranky. My favorite of the bunch though is definitely Dixie. Her hair twirling ability is unmatched, and being able to swim through jet streams with her hair underwater makes her very useful in a lot of cases. In the Switch port, we also got Funky Kong as a playable character. Sadly though, he is exclusive to the new Funky mode, which is basically an easy mode. Jumping around with his surfboard is really fun, just wish he was more than an easy mode. Now only if we could get Chunky Kong as a playable character. His voice is music to my ears. Speaking of music though, the soundtrack of this game is one of the most underrated improvements it has over its predecessor. Returns relied heavily on remixed arrangements of classic DKC songs, and while that was cool for that game, it led to its soundtrack being very underwhelming in terms of its new themes. A big reason for this was because the original composer of the DKC games, David Wise, did not return for that game. So Retro had to do it themselves. With Tropical Freeze though, the legendary David Wise returned, and it is incredibly obvious. Where Retro brings these levels to life with their clever design and detailed environments, David Wise brings them to life with his magnificent composing, creating a soundtrack that rivals the classic games. From the upbeat tribal music of Bright Savannah, to the underwater ambience of Seabreeze Cove. David's return was not something Nintendo or Retro needed to do, but the fact they reached out to him after not working with him for almost 20 years goes to show that the team actually cared about this game. They wanted it to be as spectacular as it could be, and that really goes a long way. And then there's the bosses. The DKC series is known for its difficulty, but the bosses are on a whole nother level. I think it took me literal hours to beat the final boss of Donkey Kong Country 2. Tropical Freeze is no different, as its bosses can be very hard. Hard in a fair way though. A lot of games rely on cheap attacks and moves that make bosses unnecessarily difficult, but this game specifically is not like that. These bosses are hard, yes, but predictable and learnable. Dying to a boss in this game didn't really make me mad. It made me learn from my mistakes and slowly get better at them. Until eventually I could beat them over and over again because I knew everything they did. One of my favorite bosses in this game was Fugu the Frightening. The gimmick of this boss fight is that you're underwater, but because of how nice DK controls underwater in this game, avoiding this boss's attacks and finding ways to damage it felt like gliding through air with how good I got at it. The only boss that really gave me trouble was the final boss, because oh my god, it is difficult. After fighting your way to the top of DK Island, you confront Lord Frederick, the evil snowman who took over the island and shrouded it in snow, only to hang out in a volcano for some reason. This fight sees you throwing his own henchmen at him in order to make him lose his balance and fall down, so he comes over to try and attack you himself. You have to jump on his back at the right time, but nailing the timing for this, especially in the later phases, is very tough, and was easily the hardest part of learning this fight for me. As the fight progresses, he gets more and more aggressive, and alongside falling ice dragons, lava geysers, and slippery platforms, it's no secret Retro went all out on making this final boss as hard as it could be. But with good practice and a lot of patience, it's doable and very satisfying to defeat him. Initially released on December 5th, 2014 here in North America, and then later re-released as a port on July 13th, 2018 for the Nintendo Switch and 3DS, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is the first and only game in the Captain Toad series. Even predating the actual game itself though, the core idea of Treasure Tracker came to Super Mario 3D World level designer Shinya Hiratake in a dream. This dream, however, an initial prototype, originally featured Link as the protagonist, rather than any Mario character, as Mario characters are pretty well known for jumping. And when presented with Hiratake's tech demo of Link exploring small condensed diorama-style levels, Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto shut down the idea. However, saw the potential in it and asked Hiratake to somehow include the idea in 3D World, just not with Link. So when implementing this idea into 3D World, Hiratake chose Captain Toad from the Super Mario Galaxy games as the lead, due to his heavy backpack, which would prevent him from being able to jump. But also because Captain Toad was an adventurer, so it made sense for him to be looking for treasure. After 3D World was released, Miyamoto was so impressed with Hiratake's Captain Toad levels that he encouraged production of a full game based around the concept, with Hiratake as director of the project. During the game's short development period, the team wanted to take more than full advantage of the game's unique playstyle, and really stretch the limits of what people thought could be possible with such a simple and limited concept. Upon opening the game for the first time, you're thrown right into a level. Here you can walk around a bit with Toadette in order to get used to, moving, and make your way up these ruins where you can collect a star. Once you collect a star, however, both it and Toadette are snatched away by this giant bird Wingo as it flies off, giving Captain Toad his motivation for the game. Usually in any other case, I'd say this opening is disappointing and feels rushed. But come on, it's Captain Toad. You know what you're getting into this game for. You don't need a story. Speaking of stories though, the way you select what levels to play and see your progress on them is shown through a storybook, which I think is a really cute design choice, as it almost feels like Captain Toad is chronicling his journey through this storybook. Getting into the actual levels themselves though, it's pretty obvious from the get-go how much more depth there is to these stages than there was in 3D World. That's not a diss to 3D World's Captain Toad levels at all either. It's just that the ones in this game, even from the very start, get you thinking and experimenting much more than the old ones ever did. And a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that these stages now have a much more linear design. You see, in 3D World, your goal in these levels was to collect all 5 green stars scattered around different areas of the stage. Except, there wasn't one particular green star that was the main to collect and would end the level. You needed to find every single one in order to complete the stage. So, as to not make the levels too difficult for casual players who didn't feel like checking every nook and cranny, these green stars weren't hidden all too well because again, you needed to find them. In Treasure Tracker, however, instead of having 5 required green stars to collect, the game instead has 1 required gold star at the end of the level that follows a somewhat linear path in order to get to, and 3 non-required super gems that are hidden around the stage. And since these 3 super gems are optional, the developers were able to get pretty clever with how these are hidden, a lot of the time forcing you to go out of your way to look for secrets hidden around. The depth in these levels doesn't just stop with the secrets either. As you progress through the game, the ideas and concept introduced to you get much more intricate and sometimes even make the matter of simply completing the level an actual challenge. For example, just look at the level Touchstone Turmoil. In this stage, you use the touch mechanic to move these 2 platforms around and slowly make your way closer to the star. But what surprised me when playing this level was just how much I was stopping to think. Not just to collect the gems either, but to actually progress towards the star. The game really forces you to think about what your next move is in this level. The solution isn't just obvious right away. I honestly didn't really think the game would make use of the mechanic this well, and it just felt so satisfying to finally figure out what to do and plan on my touches in advance in order to finally reach the star. Or another example of an actually challenging stage can be seen in the level Stumpy Springs Sanctuary, where you're running through tree stumps trying to find a way to reach the inside of the one in the center in order to reach the star, and having to figure out how to get the top part moving. And I mean, if the levels in this game aren't intricate and have you thinking, then they're difficult and have you on your toes. That's right, outside of the much more laid-back style of levels Captain Toad offers, this game also has a healthy variety of stages that have you rushing around to try and beat the clock. Just look at Ghost Gallery Gambit for example. Here you're running up this tower as poison slowly starts to fill the room from the bottom, with enemies constantly getting in your way that you can't just jump over and instead have to face head on with your headlight or find a way to get around them. These types of levels don't have you solving puzzles, but they still take great advantage of Captain Toad's limitations anyway. Speaking of Captain Toad's limitations though, along with the depth these stages have when compared to their 3D World counterparts, and just in general, they're also much better catered to Captain Toad's gameplay style. Everything from the aesthetic design to the level design feels specifically crafted for this type of game. You go from the blocky, almost feels like thrown together design of the levels from 3D World, to these beautiful miniature worlds brought alive with so many little details and design choices that make them fit in perfectly with Captain Toad's vibe and gameplay. And instead of the simple slopes and clear pipes that allowed Captain Toad to move around vertically, you now have much more creative set pieces that actually fit in with the level and help immerse you more in the environment. And with how much this game improves upon its levels from 3D World, it doesn't forget its roots and actually incorporates a lot of 3D World's ideas and power-ups into its stages. One of the very first levels in the game, Double Cherry Palace, makes use of, you guessed it, the Double Cherry from 3D World, and has you use it to solve a hedge maze by controlling two toads at once, trying to position them to step on both P-switches at the same time. Or the level Beat Block Sky Plaza, which brings back the beat blocks from 3D World, and has you rushing with Captain Toad to make your way to somewhere safe before the floor beneath you disappears. I love this reintroduction of 3D World ideas because it's not only the game paying homage to where it originated, but also because it reintroduces these ideas in a brand new context. Just look at these rolling hills and twisty-turny planet. In 3D World, these were not a problem for Mario or any character, and were just set pieces you ran past without thinking anything of. However, for Captain Toad, these are a big enough hurdle for him to base an entire stage around, which I love. By saying all this though, it might seem like Treasure Tracker over-relies on 3D World's ideas and concepts. However, that's absolutely not the case, as this game has tons of completely brand new ideas that set it apart from that game. You have new concepts like these seesaw platforms that launch Toad across the stage when spike balls are dropped onto them. New ideas like this stealth level that sees you cleverly avoiding Shy Guys in order to slip through undetected. New level types like the minecart stages that see you going into first person and shooting turnips in order to cause havoc. Hell, the game even has boss fights like this one against Dragodon or this other against Wingo that are very well designed around Captain Toad's limitations and can genuinely be challenging, but for all the right reasons. The idea of a Mario level editor was something that had been passed around for years. Ever since the release of the original Super Mario Bros. On the NES back in 1985, players had always dreamed of being able to make their own Mario courses that they could share with others. And even as early as the year 2000, programs for computers existed that allowed people to do exactly that. But these fan-made level editors weren't nearly as easy to pick up and simple to learn as people wanted. Understanding and even getting these programs to work in the first place required tons of prior knowledge of computers, ROMs, and the internal workings of Mario games. And it's not like Nintendo was against the idea of a Mario level editor either. In 1994, they filed patents for a standalone console that would have been entirely dedicated to level editing. However, likely due to the increased interest in 3D games over 2D games at the time, this idea was quickly abandoned. And for the next several years, the idea of a Mario level editor would sit at the back of the company's mind. But sometime in early 2015, while a development team at Nintendo was working on a tool that would make creating and testing 2D Mario levels much easier for their level designers, they quickly realized just how much potential this tool had in combination with the Wii U gamepad, and just how much potential it had as a game in general. And so they pitched the idea to Takashi Tezuka, a senior game designer at Nintendo who'd been working on Mario games ever since Super Mario Bros. On the NES. To their surprise, Tezuka absolutely loved the concept, and eventually ended up serving as the game's lead producer, bringing a lot of ideas from Mario Paint into the game, even inspiring the game's original logo. And so, after a just over 2-year development period spanning from early 2013 to mid-2015, Super Mario Maker was released worldwide on September 10th, 2015. Upon starting the game for the first time, you're greeted with a level that very vaguely resembles the beginning of 1-1 from Super Mario Bros. As you move through this empty level though, you'll eventually be met with a giant gap. As you attempt to cross this gap with a jump and are just about to fail, the game will interrupt you with a text box telling you that someone left the stage unfinished and that it's up to you to complete it. After that, you're right into the editor. You're not bombarded by long-winded paragraphs about how you make stages or how all the objects work. Rather, the game gives you some visual guidance on where objects need to go to finish the level, but ultimately leaves it up to the player to find out about how a lot of the objects work themselves. I absolutely love this. Mario Maker is all about creativity, and a lot of that initial creativity comes from just experimenting with things and seeing what works. If you were told every little thing about this game's mechanics, there would be almost no point to experiment with things. I remember playing levels online and just being shocked when they would make use of a mechanic I had no idea about, and just how inspired I would be to head into the level editor myself and experiment with this mechanic and see what I could do with it. One thing Super Mario Maker does to encourage this experimentation, though, is actually really interesting. You see, after completing the game's tutorial, you'll notice that 2 of the 4 game styles advertised are missing, and that you only have 1 row of objects you can use. This is because the game actually limits what the player can create when they first start playing the game. Instead of having everything right away, you'll get deliveries over the course of 7 days that bring you tons of new things to create with. For example, one of the days brings you the Super Mario Bros. 3 game style, along with the airship level theme and a bunch of objects, items, and enemies you'd find in airship levels. While another brings you the Super Mario World style, along with the Ghost House level theme and all the objects and enemies you'd find in there. Personally, I think this approach is a great way to get people familiar with all the game has to offer by having specific days dedicated to specific things. But I also think that this is heavily limiting in some ways as well, especially to those who were really excited to use an object that wouldn't arrive for a few days. Luckily though, if you really wanted everything all in one day, you could just change the date on your Wii U. Once you do have everything unlocked though, actually making levels is incredibly fun. The Wii U gamepad works perfectly here. Being able to easily select objects and essentially draw the stage with your finger or the stylus works so well. I've always found the Wii U gamepad to be one of Nintendo's most comfortable controllers, and Mario Maker just accentuates that even more. The UI itself is designed so well that almost any tool or object you need is just a tap or 2 away. Navigating through this UI and finding what you need is just so easy and simple. It's practically impossible to get lost or confused here due to how well everything is set up. I absolutely love how some course elements have different variants if you shake them quickly, like shaking Bowser to get Bowser Jr., or shaking a green Koopa to get a red one. These hidden elements not only condense the tool palette and make it much easier to navigate, they also encourage some experimentation for players new to the game. I remember having a lot of fun when the game first came out, just shaking all the course elements and seeing what they would reveal. This level of interaction isn't just limited to shaking items though. Mario Maker also holds a bunch of little secrets if you interact with items in other ways as well. For example, if you place a door down, you can actually knock on it by tapping it. And if you knock on the door for long enough, well... This skinny Mario actually has multiple costume variants for each game style, and it's just such a goofy little Easter egg. And I mean, this is just one of many hidden Easter eggs Mario Maker has to offer. Even the title screen has its fair share of Easter eggs if you press certain letters.
That fucking bird that I hate.
That fucking bird that I hate. That fucking bird that I hate.
That fucking bird that I hate.
The game is full of stuff like this, and just goes to show how much love and care was put into making it. Heading back to the Course Maker though, I want to talk about one of the best things it does. Its sound design and music. While you're editing a course, there's various music that will play depending on what game style and course theme you're editing in. For example, if you're making a course in the Super Mario Bros. 3 style using the ground level theme, the music that plays while you're editing will be a calm rendition of the ground theme from that game. This holds true for every single game style and course theme in the game. And while yes, it is cool to hear these laid-back modern renditions of classic Mario themes, this isn't even close to the best part of it. You see, when you place an object, enemy, or item into a level, you'll hear a robotic voice saying the name of the element you placed. But what's cool about this voice is that it's actually pitched to match the music currently playing. Take a listen. This is so cool. I've always loved this detail, as it just adds so much more charm to editing a level. I mean, the music itself was already cool enough, but this essentially just integrates the music into making a level. Along with this, I absolutely adore how seamlessly the music changes between the editing and playing mode. It just makes testing and experimenting with your level that much more smooth and, well, seamless.
Let's go!
Another really cool aspect of Super Mario Maker's course editor that I don't really see people talking about anymore is the amiibo costumes. Amiibo costumes were costumes that allowed players to play as a variety of characters in the Super Mario Bros. 1 style based on what amiibo they scanned. For example, if you scanned a Princess Peach amiibo, you would unlock the Princess Peach amiibo costume. These costumes not only gave tons of purpose to amiibos, but they also allowed players to theme certain levels after certain characters, which is something I've always loved about this game. And these amiibo costumes weren't just limited to Mario characters either. You could get costumes from all different Nintendo franchises like Zelda, Metroid, F-Zero, Animal Crossing, and Pokemon, but also non-Nintendo franchises too, like Sonic, Pac-Man, Mega Man, and even Hello Kitty for some reason. Having the ability to create a puzzle-themed level and have the player play as Link, or create a speedrun-themed level and have the player play as Sonic, added so much to the experience. The amiibo costumes were one of the coolest new additions in Super Mario Maker. It is such a shame that this feature was removed in the sequel. Speaking of new additions though, Super Mario Maker actually introduces and also changes a lot about 2D Mario. For example, in New Super Mario Bros. U, if you were to try to spin jump off of enemies like piranha plants and thwomps like you could in Super Mario World, you would take damage and just pass right through them. Whereas in Super Mario Maker's Mario U game style, you can now spin jump off of almost any spiked enemy, which allows for a ton of level ideas. Along with this, Super Mario Maker also introduces some new course themes and enemies to certain game styles that they never appeared in. Enemies like Boos, Monty Moles, Thwomps, and Wigglers can now appear in the Super Mario Bros. 1 style, and even have completely unique sprites to reflect Mario 1. Course themes like the Ghost House that never appeared in either Super Mario Bros. 1 or 3 now appear in Super Mario Maker, and even feature completely new music tracks using the same sound fonts used in those games' original OSTs. I absolutely love the new tracks composed for course themes that never appeared in the original games. These new tracks feel exactly like they were meant for that game style, and I mean it's not very surprising that they do either. The man responsible for composing these new themes, and just Super Mario Maker's OST in general, was exactly the same man responsible for composing the OSTs of all the game styles featured here in the first place, Koji Kondo. It is so cool that this game allows you to make stages and certain level themes that weren't present in some of the original games. And it's even cooler that they got new music. But enough about making Super Mario Maker levels. I think it's time we actually talk about playing Super Mario Maker levels. I mean, being able to make 2D Mario levels was one thing, but actually being able to share these levels online and play other people's levels added a whole new layer to the experience. There was an almost infinite amount of levels you could play, and whether they were simple recreations of levels from past Mario games, or near impossible Kaizo gauntlets that required almost frame-perfect inputs to complete, it was really hard to get bored of this game due to the sheer amount of stages there were to play. Super Mario Maker has the ability to appeal to pretty much any Mario fan due to how diverse its level genres are. You obviously have your traditional Mario levels, but you also have auto levels, where you don't move a muscle and just let the game play itself for you while you perform a bunch of cool tricks by doing absolutely nothing. You have speedrun levels where you have to make quick decisions and complete the stage within 20 to 30 seconds. You have music levels where you listen to note block renditions of popular songs. You have puzzle levels where you're using your brain to solve puzzles, you got Kaizo levels like I mentioned before, and finally, you have probably the most infamous Super Mario Maker level genre of them all, troll levels, where you, well, get trolled. These level genres also had communities to them. You had communities dedicated to making the coolest auto levels that would work together and experiment with ways to create the craziest spectacles they could. You had communities dedicated to making the hardest Kaizo levels that would collaborate together and share ideas on certain tricks they could introduce to spice up their levels. The community aspect of Super Mario Maker was huge, and probably my favorite element of the online aspect of the game. It was so cool to be able to leave comments and see other people's comments appear throughout the stage. And after you beat a level, you got to see what other people thought about it and leave your own thoughts on the stage. I remember I used to share my levels on Miiverse and get so excited when someone liked my post or played my level. Super Mario Maker is a big reason behind why I love the Wii U's community aspect so much. But the community aspect of Super Mario Maker wasn't just restricted to the Wii U itself. This game also had a huge YouTube community. When it came out, you had some of the biggest YouTubers on the platform like Markiplier and Jacksepticeye starting entire series on the game. You had YouTubers who based their entire channel around the game and grew because of it. You had YouTubers like Dash who would have their fans submit levels, with these fans trying to troll them or just give them a difficult challenge. Super Mario Maker was perfect for YouTube content. There was practically an infinite amount of levels to make videos on, and there were so many elements of the game to explore to keep viewers entertained and coming back for more. And this content, and just the game in general, was so approachable because it was Mario, a game franchise everyone knew. Overall, the community aspect of Super Mario Maker was one of the strongest aspects of the entire game, and just something that made the whole experience so much more memorable and enjoyable. Super Mario Maker is easily one of the best games on the Wii U. This game takes an idea that Mario fans have always dreamed of and makes it a reality. It makes perfect use of the Wii U gamepad, and honestly should have been a launch title for the system due to how well it demonstrates what the controller could do. Making levels here is such a blast, not only because of the gamepad, but also because of the sheer amount of charm present in the course maker. The custom music, the voice pitch to match that music, and the various little secrets you can uncover will just leave you with a big smile on your face the entire time. The amiibo costumes were an excellent way to give the amiibo some use in the game, and allowed for incredibly well-designed levels themed around certain characters. Being able to share your levels online and play other people's stages in an instant was so much fun, and the whole community aspect surrounding it just made it all the more enjoyable. Super Mario Maker is a game I will always cherish. It was such a simple idea and concept, but executed masterfully well. I really do love its sequel on the Switch, and do plan to cover it someday, but the original on the Wii U will always have a soft spot in my heart. This game is amazing! The earliest evidence of the Wii U can be traced all the way back to 2008, when Nintendo, after receiving lots of criticism from their core audience about the Wii's graphical limitations, started conceptualizing ideas for a more powerful console. A console that would be capable of full HD graphics. Many people, despite not knowing Nintendo's plans, started theorizing a few years into the Wii's lifespan that the console would receive an HD revision in the coming years. Fans dubbed this HD revision the Wii HD, and speculated that it would come out sometime in 2011. However, President of Nintendo Japan at the time, Satoru Iwata, shut down these rumors in a 2009 interview, stating that he saw no significant reason to make the system HD compatible. Though, if they were to release a new console, the new system would naturally support HD resolutions. Along with being HD compatible, creator of some of Nintendo's most iconic franchises, Shigeru Miyamoto, stated in another 2009 interview that he would push for motion controls to be featured on this possible new console, since motion controls were one of the biggest reasons behind the Wii's success. After this, not much was heard about a new console from Nintendo, with Iwata telling news sources in early 2010 that Nintendo would only start announcing a new system once they ran out of ideas with the Wii. Fast forward to April 2011, rumors started to float around that Nintendo was planning to reveal a successor to the Wii known as Project Cafe at E3 2011. Sources claim that the system would output full HD graphics and be fully backwards compatible with the Wii. Some sources even went as far to say this new console would come with a tablet-like device, featuring a touchscreen and the ability to stream games from the console directly to the tablet. Many fans, though, were very skeptical about these rumors and denounced the idea of a reveal at E3 2011. However, to many people's surprise, Nintendo would release a statement only a mere 2 weeks after these rumors started to float around, stating that a successor to the Wii would be released in 2012, with playable prototype units available at E3 2011. After and even before Nintendo confirmed their new console would be revealed at E3 2011, many mock-ups for the system were made using the vague details provided by sources. And out of the many I've seen, this one has got to be my absolute favorite. It reminds me of the Wii phone. And after months of continued speculation and rumors, the elusive Project Cafe would be revealed at E3 2011.
Hey, it's time to watch some baseball.
Okay.
Pitch, swing and a miss. 98-mile-per-hour fastball.
This trailer was awful. The entire time it keeps referring to the gamepad as the new controller, and never once mentions the fact that it's a brand new console. If I saw this trailer without the prior knowledge that this was in fact a new console, I would just assume it was an accessory for the Wii, because that's exactly what it's presented as. And due to the awful presentation and skepticism about this new controller, Nintendo's stock plummeted to levels they hadn't seen since the GameCube days. After the Wii U's rocky reveal at E3 2011, Nintendo would continue to provide more information about the console in the coming months, with newly revealed games New Super Mario Bros. U and Nintendo Land being the big launch titles Nintendo was pushing for the system. And despite all the negative press and criticism Nintendo continued to receive closer and closer to the console's launch, on November 18th, 2012, the Wii U would officially launch. At launch, the Wii U actually sold pretty well, with the console selling out at a lot of North American retailers. In its first fiscal year, the system sold 3.45 million units. Not as much as the Wii's 5.84 million in its first fiscal year, but still a decent launch nonetheless. However, one thing you may notice from looking at this sales chart here is that in its first fiscal year, the Wii U was outsold by its predecessor, the Wii, which is not very good. Another thing you've probably noticed from looking at this chart is that while the Wii almost tripled its sales in its second fiscal year, the Wii U halved its sales, with the next few years never topping that initial launch year, officially making the console a commercial failure sales-wise. But sales are not what this video is about, so without further ado, let's get into the console itself. Upon starting the system, you're greeted with two screens, one on the TV and one on the gamepad. The first of the screens is the main menu, which is very similar to the Wii's, although it's a bit more of a modern and HD take on the interface. The other screen is Waru Waru Plaza, which you can switch to the gamepad if you hit X. This plaza shows a bunch of applications and games on the Wii U with your Mii standing in the middle. When Miiverse was still up, which we'll talk about soon, the plaza would show you different things community members of certain applications and games were drawing and talking about. I absolutely adored this. The plaza here gave a sense of community. I loved booting up my Wii U and seeing all the things people were talking about. I loved clicking a certain Mii in the wide pool of them all and seeing what that particular person had to say or what they were up to. The ambient music that plays in the background while you explore the plaza or search across the menu is also just so calming. It's not something you would think is that important, but going back to this after the silence of the Switch menu is so refreshing. Menu themes are important. They're the first thing you hear every time you boot up the console. This ambient theme reminds me of what it felt like when I would rush home from school or wake up early to get on my Wii U. The menu and plaza of the Wii U were incredible. But moving on to the applications of the Wii U, how could I forget the Mii Maker? Making its triumphant return from the Wii U features an upgraded version of the Mii Maker. Although not offering any new customization options, the Wii U's Mii Maker makes use of the gamepad's camera and allows you to take pictures of, well, anything and convert them into Miis. This picture system was not perfect, but it was so fun to mess around with. I remember taking pictures of my friends or just silly images I found on the internet and seeing what the Mii Maker would cook up. Oh god. The Nintendo eShop. Initially launched on the 3DS about a year before the Wii U's release, the Nintendo eShop was and still is Nintendo's digital store. The eShop was created to follow up the success of the DSi Shop on the DS and the Wii Shop channel on the Wii. The big difference of the eShop though was that you could buy anything. On the Wii Shop, you couldn't buy and download games like Super Mario Galaxy or Super Smash Bros. Brawl, as not only would they take hours to download with the internet of the past, the Wii only had 512 megabytes of space without an SD card installed, and most Wii games were gigabytes in space. But with the Wii U, Nintendo realized the potential of a full digital market, and allowed for all Wii U games to be purchased from the eShop. Along with that, Nintendo also brought back the Virtual Console, and expanded its library to now include Game Boy Advance and DS games. The big issue with the Virtual Console on the Wii U, though, was the exclusion of Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. The 3DS received those systems, so why didn't the Wii U? It doesn't really make any sense. These shops were literally connected to the point where you could add funds on your 3DS and then use those funds on your Wii U. So why didn't they both have the same Virtual Console library? I would have loved to have been able to buy a Game Boy game on my 3DS under my same Nintendo Network account on my Wii U, and be able to download and play that game on my Wii U. It would have made these two systems connected. There is literally no excuse for why this didn't happen. So the Wii U eShop, while still having an amazing Virtual Console selection, still suffered from things that could have easily been avoided. Moving on to the absolute best Wii U application, we have Miiverse. Miiverse was basically Twitter for Nintendo systems. You could join different game and application communities, see what people were talking about, and even post drawings and interact with people. Miiverse was very poorly moderated, and you could get away with saying just about anything. But that's what made it so perfect. This application was home to some of the funniest posts I've ever seen on the internet. And it's all made 10 times funnier when you take into account that this was posted on a Nintendo-operated social media. I mean, just look at John here in the Sonic the Hedgehog community. Who even thought it was remotely okay to put this here? The point of it is that it's a trap. It's to prevent you from just holding right. Me standing outside your house with a bat is also a trap. It's to prevent you from just walking forward. Miiverse wasn't only exclusive to the app though. In select games like Mario Maker and Splatoon, you could put your drawings on display in Mario Maker levels or on your character in the Splatoon lobby. This made these games so much more fun, and just like I said earlier, made the console have a sense of community. Sadly though, Miiverse shut down years ago back in late 2017. But with the use of a website called Archiveverse, you can search up your Nintendo Network ID and find your old posts if you have any. Looks like 2014 me was very proud of himself for beating Luigi U. Miiverse was by far one of the coolest and funniest parts of the Wii U. I will never forget it. So sure, the applications on the system were great, but what about the games? Mario Kart 8, Super Mario 3D World, Splatoon, Yoshi's Woolly World, Smash 4, Zelda Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess HD, Nintendo Land, and a bunch more absolutely incredible games released on this system throughout its short lifetime. Although not many of these games made good, or well in some cases any use at all of the gamepad, that doesn't deny the fact that they are amazing games both graphically and gameplay wise. The power upgrade from the Wii to Wii U was incredible. Nintendo went from running games at 480p to 1080p. Games like Mario Kart 8 still look beautiful by today's standard, and so many of the games on the system hold up astoundingly well graphically. The failure of the Wii U cannot at all be attributed to the games. Just look at how well their ports sold on a successful console, the Switch. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, despite being a port of a Wii U game, is the best-selling Nintendo Switch game, with a whopping 52 million units sold as of a few months ago. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, again a port of a Wii U game, has sold 15 million units on the Switch, triple what it sold on the Wii U. These games were doomed to fail not only because of the Wii U's awful presentation, with most not understanding it was an entirely new console, but also the very bad marketing of the system.
Hot buttered popcorn, that's a deal. Yeah.
The Wii U commercials. These are notoriously known as some of the most cringeworthy commercials Nintendo, hell, any company has ever made. Not only did these ads only target children, a demographic Nintendo wasn't only appealing to after the success of the Wii with the casual audience, they were also just weird.
Mario and Peach together. Me and Gina together. I'm in.
I mean, honestly, what was Nintendo thinking? Their commercial and ad campaigns were fine in the Wii era. What was the point of changing up something that already worked? Returning back to the games though, I want to highlight a few that I think made great use of the gamepad. Starting off with Super Mario Maker. This game was hands down one of the best ideas Nintendo has ever had, and made use of the gamepad wonderfully. Super Mario Maker, as the title implies, allowed you to create your own custom Mario levels using a ton of assets from all over the 2D Mario series. Along with being able to make levels, you were also able to upload them and play other people's levels. The concept was incredibly simple, but executed amazingly. Everyone has always wanted to make their own Mario level, and the Wii U was perfect for it. By using the stylus and the touchscreen on the gamepad, you could easily select and place assets all over the level. There was such a novelty to watching a friend place down objects on the gamepad using the touchscreen, and seeing them appear on the TV with one of the many hand options representing their hand and the stylus. Super Mario Maker is one of the best examples of a game that needed the gamepad. It showed just how useful the gamepad could actually be. I genuinely think if this system launched with Super Mario Maker instead of New Super Mario Bros. U, and was marketed a little better, it would have sold significantly better. Just look at the Wii. It launched with the legendary Wii Sports, a game that in one of the most simple forms perfectly demonstrated just how innovative and important the system's motion controls were. And Super Mario Maker does exactly that. It perfectly and simply demonstrates the abilities of the Wii U gamepad, using a character and franchise everybody knows. But it's not like the Wii U didn't launch without a game that showed off the capabilities of the gamepad. I mean, just look at Nintendo Land. Nintendo Land was a minigame collection that came bundled with the system, similar to how Wii Sports came bundled with the Wii. This game is heavily underrated and is some of the most fun I've had with the system, but the game wasn't marketed well. I mean, if you dive deep, yes, this shows off incredible ways that the gamepad can be used. With Mario Chase, a tag game where the seeker uses the Wii U gamepad as their primary screen to hunt others so those on the TV can't see where they are, being one of the best. It's way too complicated to sell someone on the system with. I mean, what's more convincing? Buy our new system and use the gamepad to hunt your friends in a Luigi's Mansion minigame, or buy our new system and use the gamepad to make your own custom Mario levels that you can share with anyone. I love Nintendo Land and may even make a full video on the game one day, but it's just too complicated to sell someone on. One of the only other games I can think of that made really good use of the gamepad is Game & Wario. This game had you using the controller for all kinds of things. Sometimes you were using it to shoot arrows, sometimes you were using it as a shield, and sometimes you were even using it as a camera. Games like this showed just how much potential the controller had. There was so much you could do with it that would really enhance and change the gaming experience. The gamepad was such a cool idea. It's a shame the thing would disconnect if you went 10 feet away from the system. Moving on though, I want to talk about one of the absolute best things the Wii U did. Backwards compatibility. Yes, Wii U discs weren't the only discs the system took. It also took every single Wii disc. Along with this, the Wii U also provided a built-in Wii menu and everything. On the main menu, if you put a Wii game in and opened it, or just clicked the Wii menu icon, you would be transported back in time. Having the ability to do this was so cool. It would have been one thing if they just allowed you to play your Wii games on the Wii U, but the fact that they integrated a full-on Wii into the system is nothing short of incredible. And at first, you might assume that the Wii U is emulating a Wii menu and emulating Wii games, but it's actually not. Wii games run natively on the Wii U. Being able to play Wii games on the Wii U was incredibly convenient, and a severely underappreciated part of the system. The Wii U is a weird console. It was released to try to follow up Nintendo's best-selling home console of all time, and ended up being their worst-selling home console of all time. There are so many aspects about this system that I dislike, and whether it be the underutilized gamepad, weird eShop decisions, or awful marketing, it can never make me hate the console. Apps like Miiverse added a lot of charm to the Wii U. Ever since day one, there was always a community aspect to the console. It didn't matter if you were playing a game alone, you always got to see what others had to say about it, which is something that I will always cherish about it. Every time I remember something that I disliked about the system, I instantly remember 3 things that I loved about it. The Wii U laid the groundwork for the Switch. It took so many of the best aspects of the Wii U, like the hybrid home portable console concept, and improved upon them tenfold. The Wii U taught Nintendo so many valuable lessons about the importance of marketing, the importance of third-party support, and just how important it is for them to keep innovating. Maybe I'm just blinded by nostalgia, but to me, the Wii U has and always will be one of my favorite consoles. It has stood the test of time and proven that despite its shortcomings, it's easily one of the most important consoles Nintendo has ever made. So to answer the question posed at the very beginning of this video, was the Wii U actually bad? Absolutely not. It was amazing!